Michelin fights waste by developing tires made to last, so you can use them for longer.
World time has come to
Michelin, motion for life.
Ago, the 2022 Motul Petit Le Mans marked the end of the DPI era. And while the dawn of the GTP evolution awaits, today is the start of the virtual revolution. This is the 2022 IMSA Esports Michelin Global Championship. Hello everyone and welcome to VCO Esports and to RaceSpot TV for coverage of what is going to be an exciting 4 rounds. A sim racing series by sim racers for sim racers. 2 hours and 40 minutes of racing, and we start here at the Michelin Raceway Road Atlanta. My name is Arjuna Kankipati, joined alongside by Lewis McLean. And Lewis, we've been waiting almost a year for this and we are excited to go racing.
Oh yeah, I can't really remember how many times you've told me that we're one day going to do this championship. It's amazing to finally be here. I know IMSA's got a lot of backing, a lot of focus on sim racing. They've been pushing this kind of stuff time and time again, but to have a championship like this, like you said, made by sim racers for sim racers, it's going to be such a fun run through the season. I can't wait.
Talk a little bit about where we're going, what we're doing, because in some ways this will be familiar, but we're going to do some stuff new and we're going to preview things you'll see in the real world in 2023. We start here at the home of the Motul Petit Le Mans. Just 2 weeks ago, we said goodbye to the DPI era. Next time, 7 days from today, a slightly early start time, yes, but we go racing on the best coast of the USA, the WeatherTech Raceway Laguna Seca. Then a preview of the Battle of the Bricks as we head to the Brickyard, and we end at the World Center of Racing to get ready for where the GTP evolution will begin. And the exciting thing about this, Lewis, is really we got race control and safety cars to play a factor.
I can't, like I said, we've said this time and time again. Safety cars, they needed in sim racing. No, there's no real safety issue. But it's exciting. It brings in some extra. It brings in that little bit of realism as well. There's a lot of championships that do things in slightly different ways, and I love the idea that we can take this and that we can bring in safety cars to spice up the strategy when we've had a fairly sizable crash that race control will be seeing over, along with dishing out some live penalties as well. They might be quite busy today.
Especially at a track like this and with GTD and touring cars. We'll talk more about that, but let's talk about what this means for IMSA with John Doonan. So we're joined by John Doonan, the president of IMSA. And John, we are delighted, of course, not just about what today signifies for the future, but let's talk about IMSA and its partnership with esports, not just through the years and the decades, indeed, but specifically starting with COVID in 2020 and how iRacing helped IMSA navigate through the pandemic.
Well, first of all, thank you for having me. Thrilled to be part of the show. Also, you're spot on. You know, when I had the opportunity to join the IMSA team, I sat down with the marketing and the communications and partnership team and said, hey, I think we really need to, ramp up our esports and our e-gaming opportunities. And they shared, of course, what they had been doing, the partnerships that were in place, the rights agreements that were in place. That was around November, December of 2019. Fast forward to, I think it was March 12th. We were all packing up, getting ready to go to Sebring, and the world stopped. And it forced us in many ways to leverage this platform as our way to engage with our fan base, as a way to keep our professional drivers and teams active, and most importantly, to showcase IMSA product, the product that our partners want us to distribute to our audience. And I remember vividly that first 12 hours of Sebring weekend that we were able to put an iRacing event together. There were people, my son in particular, who looked over my shoulder and thought we're still racing, and that speaks to the authenticity of it. But it really became our product for a while, and so happy and so grateful that partners engaged with it. And race teams and drivers got after it as well. And Amazon was kept busy shipping sim rigs and the like.
We're just 2 weeks removed from the end of the 2022 Motul Petit Le Mans, which signified the end of an era of IMSA competition. And while there's plenty of excitement about 2023 and the start of the GTP evolution, What does this Sunday mean about the next step for IMSA and working in this virtual competition space?
Well, I think, when we were into it during 2020 and a little bit in 21, I don't want to say that it was forced, but it was our way to go to business. It was the way to execute our sport. Now we have the opportunity, based on a lot of those learnings, based on the evolution of sim racing in general, to do a professional series, to bring out the best of the best in sim racing. Every weekend, we want the best drivers, the best teams, the best manufacturers at the best racetracks to do our product in reality. Now, to bring the best sim racers, the best sim racing teams to those same best circuits, we're doing it in the sim world. So we're really excited about it. Obviously, our partners at Michelin believe in this as well. They've come on as a further addition to their already significant partnership with us. So in all, it's energizing. We came out of a historic and epic Petit Le Mans, our championship finale. Now we're going to enter this as a additional transition into 2023.
And we'll head back to the Michelin Raceway Road Atlanta to continue the action here in the IMSA Esports Michelin Global Championship. And so qualifying is underway. I'm sure many of you have questions. Who's racing? What manufacturers out there? We've got even splits of each of the manufacturers represented. Let's learn a little bit more about the drivers here in our extended VCO pre-show.
Hello everybody.
Just had to buy it even.
Well, pretty much none.
I competed in the Bathurst 12 hours back in February.
Last 2 seasons in WTCS League.
The Mercedes is the car I was driving the most.
A lot of races, of course, more in the Ferrari fixture.
TCRs are completely new for me.
Overall, I really like the car.
It's one of my favorite cars on iRacing, without any doubt.
It demands maximum to be really fast.
Done a lot of racing with the Elantra, so we are quite lucky, to be honest.
I sadly don't have too much experience with it. The last time I was racing it was DNLS round 1 last year on the Nordschleife, and I had fun in that race. It's looking good.
Round 1, Road Atlanta.
I think it has to be Road Atlanta.
It's Road Atlanta.
Road Atlanta round.
Road Atlanta. This track have a nice flow.
All the elevation change, blind corners, not a lot of runoff. Just a brilliant track.
Have everything that the track needs, from slow corner to fast flow corners.
It just feels like a roller coaster.
It's following as well the Petit Le Mans, so it will be interesting.
It's definitely Daytona.
I would pick Daytona.
I'm looking forward to Daytona.
Daytona
because I have a good memories on this track.
Combination of fast corners and tricky corners like the last chicane.
I think it's also my most driven track ever, and especially the bus stop, it's extremely much fun.
All the draft games happening there and also fuel saving can be quite exciting, and it's always there for a good finish.
My teammate is Oscar Rinne, 24 from Turku, and one of the fastest Finnish drivers.
Teammate Rafał Jones, very difficult surname to pronounce, I suppose it is going to be for commentators.
My teammate Jarosław Cebula, he is my friend, he is very funny. When we training together, then he always have an analytical approach to racing.
Teammate this season will be Karl Winkler in Germany, aka Kali, as we like to call him. Just super fast in everything he drives. And fun fact about him, he makes delicious burgers.
My teammate is Nicolas Robilar. He is from Chile. He started to race in Gran Turismo and won the National Cup in 2019 and the Manufacturers Cup in 2020, and he really likes to eat donuts.
My teammate is David Tuck. He's a driver from Hungary and he started sim racing back in 2011. He's winning 2 times the Hungarian National Championship.
Well, my teammate in this series is Jonathan Alvarez. We compete each other to look forward to the 10th extra, to the extra 10 to improve, and we are like in the same level.
My partner doesn't need much presentation. Always great and willing to help. It's a pleasure for me to share a car in this championship.
My teammate will be Moritz Löhner. Maybe some of you know him. I was told he's quite okay at driving. He has won multiple major championships. Was also racing 2 years in real life, the DTM trophy. So he really has some good experience.
Michael Rechel is a guy you can make happy quite easily, but if something doesn't go his way in the race, he's gonna be like screaming, like you've probably seen in his live streams.
Karen Harrison, a very fast driver. I put a lot of trust to this guy.
Alessandro is really young, only 14 years old, and comes from Florida in USA. He has been a national champion in karting and is currently racing in the USA Junior Series.
Carlos Diegues is Portuguese. To me, it's not a teammate, it's like a brother, but sometimes it's super rude with you to make you grow up inside the game. So yeah, it's one of the best persons that you can take as a teammate.
God, no.
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 That's a preview of next week, but as IMSA enters this virtual revolution, they do so with the support of long-time partners at Michelin, and we sat down with Tom Sullivan, the marketing manager at Michelin North America, to learn more about their involvement in esports racing. So I'm joined by Tom Sullivan, the motorsports manager for Michelin USA. And Tom, we're delighted to have Michelin be part of this new era of IMSA Esports, but of course, Michelin and IMSA have been partners for a long, long time.
We certainly have, and we value that partnership. We've been part of IMSA Racing for quite some time, and since 2008 being the official tire partner of IMSA. So prior to that, we were in several different classes, including the GTLM class, which worked with many of the main manufacturers that you're used to, the Ferraris, the BMWs, the Corvettes, and others. And now, since 2018, we're able to work with more than 17 of the manufacturers that are on board. So clearly a bigger job for us, but one really lean in to have joy.
And when it comes to technology, we'll talk a little bit more about esports in the future, but Michelin has done so much with technology, the RFID scanners, for example, that the IMSA WeatherTech Sports Car Championship uses now. What investments in technology can motorsports fans be looking forward to as we enter a new era of GTP racing?
Well, the great thing about GTP racing is it brings the highest level of sports car racing to the U.S., to North America. But the biggest thing there is we have an opportunity to lean into what Michelin's been doing for over 100 years. The highest level of innovation, research, and design for tire development, and bring in what I think everybody wants to lean into now at this point is sustainability in motorsports. GTP really gives us and IMSA and the other partners involved an opportunity to prove ourselves on the track and really make the racetrack the premier laboratory for sustainability, not only in motorsports, but beyond.
Very exciting times, of course, working closely with the manufacturers. Let's head back to the action at the Michelin Raceway Road Atlanta. And so let's talk about the host of round one of this IMSA Esports Michelin Global Championship. It just hosted the real world Motul Petit Le Mans 2 weeks ago. Last week, drivers were here for the iRacing Petit Le Mans. It's a familiar track, but Lewis, with the GTD and touring car combinations, it's going to be a very different multi-class battle to what drivers have been used to.
Yeah, the speed differential between, like you said, the GTDs and the touring cars is immense around here. It'll be fine on the backstretch between 7 and 10, no worries about that. But the run through T1 up through the S's into turn 5 and even the run through 6 and 7, it's going to be very, very tricky. If there's one thing that we all know about this circuit more so than anything else, it's the undulation. It's up and down. It's a proper roller coaster. And that is why, to be honest, everyone absolutely loves it.
So where is it in your list of best tracks in the world, Lewis?
Ooh, third.
Okay, third is all right.
We'll go with third. Bathurst, Nordschleife, and then Road Atlanta. Is that all right with you?
We'll deal with it. We'll deal with this more later. We've got a fascinating season coming up for us, though. And with qualifying already in the books, we are ready to go racing here at the Michelin Raceway Road Atlanta. Let's run you down through the starting grid for round one of this IMSA Esports Michelin Global Championship. And it's a Mercedes lockout of the front row. It's Nicholas Laubisch with a 1:15.991 that punches his way to the front of the field. He'll be joined by former teammate Luis Naja representing the Mercedes-AMG team Williams Esports. Basically 200 splits the two of them. Then the first of the Porsches, Alejandro Sanchez, lines up in the Apex Racing 98 with Rainer Talbar in the split-liveried BS Turner. The first of the BMWs alongside Antiohola in fifth with Bruno Spengler, the 2020 IMSA Pro Series champion, lining up in sixth for the official BMW BS competition team. The Frenchman Johan Hart inside of Alexei Nesov in the Mercedes-AMG Urano car. Rounding out the top 10 is Ferrari of Jaden Ladit for Monaco Esports, while Carl Janssen in the second of our Williams Esports Mercedes is on the outside of row number 5. It's a long way back for Maximilian Benecke, but it's less than 2/10 between him and first position. He'll line up alongside the Ferrari of Oscar Grine Fakova, Gianni Vecchio in 13th. Not great for Redline in qualifying. Arturo Melgar will roll alongside in a second Monaco Esports Ferrari. Sal Vitalians for MSI Esports will be in 15th. He says he loves the car, but maybe not loving it in qualifying. Alexander Davidson in the Lamborghini for Pure Sims Esports, one of our teams, with entries across both classes on the outside of row 8. Nicholas Rubelar in the best of the fire-breathing McLarens alongside James Armstrong as the Brabham name returns to IMSA competition. Altus Esports sees Rafael Razag in 19th. Jamie Moon in the Team 75, Bernard by SimRC Spider-Man car lines up on the outside of the top 20 with Tristan Iglesias and Enric Andre sharing row number 11. Moritz Lohner said he's here to have some fun after his real-world racing season is wrapped up. He'll be in 23rd alongside the Hardpoint by Delta Sport entry as Hardpoint partners up with Delta Sport to enter the sim racing world. Dion Fiallo in the CrowdStrike Racing number 4 Mercedes is 25th with Jersey Glack in the Triton Racing McLaren 26th. Then Maniti Racing, Aspar Esports and Carbon 29 GT3 cars with times on the board splitting just 1 second across them. It's Michael Neumeier in the Biela Racing Euronics Lamborghini that will round out the GTD field. Then over to the touring cars, and it is, surprisingly to some, a Honda that at least is on the front row. The Hyundais are expected to dominate. It's Pure Sims Esports and Konstantin Stolzenberg that puts it on the front row, along with Martin van Lozenoord, as R8G sees Roman Grosjean Esports take up the manufacturer that Grosjean now represents in the NTT IndyCar Series. Kieran Harrison, one of the strongest in TCR, representing SimRC in the Hyundai in third, with Arnage competition on the outside of row 2. Scott Michaels from the real world to virtual in the CrowdStrike Racing 133, powered by SRC Movano Corsa, sees Valentin Mandanuk in the second of the R8G Hondas alongside Raphael Joust. We hope we said that right. In the Semper Racing Hyundai is in 7th with Chris Shorter, the South African. On the outside of row 4, Oliver Ackerman. And then Gergo Boldia, 2-time WTCR Esports champion, rounds out the top 10. Pascal Stix is always quick, but with Core Sim Racing losing TCR drivers, he ventures into front-wheel drive land. He lines up 11th with Alex Torres alongside the second of the Full Send Racing cars. An official Honda Racing entry in 13th with Nicole Foggy rounding out the field. And I won't turn to Lewis McLean. Instead, we'll bring in our pit reporter, Ewan O'Leary, for the very first time and run you down through our Michelin keys to the race. And Ewan, this is one just 2 hours, 40 minutes in length, but it's one where drivers are expected to just have to survive.
Yeah, absolutely. It's going to be very important to just survive at this circuit. No room for error at Road Atlanta. We speak about traffic management all the time. That will be a key throughout the remainder of the season. The big one for me, tyre conservation right at the bottom there. 2 hours 40 is an odd distance to have a race, really. It doesn't really work out quite well if you're a touring car or if you're a GTD car. It doesn't really work out greatly. So you're going to have to conserve your tyres.
And so, as we get ready to go, Lewis, quick expectations and a prediction, at least in GTD, for the winner.
That is a tricky one. I think it's going to go to the Apex Porsche. That's a bit of a boring choice after their victory in the iRacing Petit Le Mans, but I think it's going to go the way of Apex. I just hope we're not going to see the safety car too early.
So, as the pace car pulls off, The GTP evolution is still on the horizon. Today, it's about the virtual revolution. It's Mercedes that leads us to the start of the 2022 IMSA Esports Michelin Global Championship, and it will be Nicolas Laubisch that runs us into turn number 1. It's crazy already for the GTDs, just trying to find some space on the climb up into turn number 3, but it's Mercedes 1 and 3 with Apex Racing Team able to split them and get up into second. They'll crest the hill, they'll dive down into the S's, and now we await the touring cars to get their season underway as well. 3 wide on the run for second, but into turn 1 they go as the GTD machines already come through turn 5. A safe start seemingly through the pack.
Yeah, both our large competitions going super aggressive in both the categories. Did see them, I know they're fairly far back in the GTD category, but they were going right on the attack in that. R8G trying to find their way down the inside as we crest the hill and start dropping down. You've got a couple of switches of position, but nothing too much. I think it's Biela trying to work their way up through some of that traffic. They had to start from the back, of course, after failing to get a qualifying time, and there we go. They've just sent R8G straight off at T5.
Valentin Mandenok in the second of the R8G cars loses out. He'll drop out of the top 10 as we wait for the rest of the cars in the GTD car to enter the chicane. The leaders already heading to the Fox Factory Bridge to finish lap 1 here at the Michelin Raceway Road Atlanta. Nursing the Michelin tires going to be paramount in the early stages, with drive time regulations to talk about and to factor in as well. It's going to be, of course, interesting how lap traffic plays out. The delta in lap times here between the two classes, Lewis, is pretty significant, and in some ways I think scarier than it is with the LMP2 cars and the GTDs.
It's tricky. It's like we said before, when it comes to lap traffic, it's never particularly easy. There is a fine margin though on the differential where it actually kind of is not too bad between the classes. You kind of want them to be pretty quick in the corners, slow on the straights. That makes life easier. Now the touring cars are not exactly swift in the corners. I think Pure Sims, by the way, are having an issue here in the touring car category. I don't know what's happened. They've just dropped back. They're back in the pit lane, so they've already come straight in. I think this is one of our early penalties.
Yes. So let's quickly run you down. Registration penalties. There's a handful of teams that entered with the wrong car number. It's like entering the wrong paperwork when you show up for a real race weekend. They get a 10-second time penalty to serve within the first 3 laps of the race, and that is why, despite the pace in qualifying, that Pure Sims TCR car will roll, touring car, excuse me, will roll down pit lane. Ash Sutton not going to be too thrilled with that one. Back at the front of the field in GTD, it's Urano that leads from Apex, Williams, BS, and Kova. Now, BOP is always going to be a hot button topic no matter what series you're in, but the good thing is, Lewis, we have 5 cars representing each manufacturer in the GTDs, 7 cars representing our 2 manufacturers in touring car.
Yeah, and again, I love it because it gives that variety. Sometimes if you leave it open to the teams entirely to be like, yeah, just pick whatever you want, then you say, oh, right, they're all Porsches, cool. Whereas this, it's marked for open. It means that we have that variety. It means that sometimes a car that might not be the preferred vehicle around somewhere like, say, for example, Road Atlanta actually ends up just being really good on race day. This was expected, at least in the GTD category, to be something that was more slightly focused towards the Porsche entries. It is a circuit that tends to favour them ever so slightly, and yet here we are, Mercedes at the front. Who knows what we're going to see unfold during the race? Because pace over 1 lap is one thing, but the strategy, how much you can save fuel. This is kind of what we've expected. We've seen it in other competitions where, especially in the GTD category, once the race gets underway, once we've got through the first couple of laps, it then starts to calm down a little bit. Everyone gets in a nice long train, and we just let things unravel lap by lap. Let them save fuel. Let them, as Ewan put it so well earlier on, about looking after the tyres. They need to conserve them. They need to focus on the full race, not just the next 5 minutes.
One thing that is also mirroring the real world as we enter this virtual revolution for IMSA Esports is the fact that we've got open radio basically for all the teams. As Apex and Urano, I think, maybe fighting side by side further back in the field, as you see at the front of the field as we watch. And now Kova's BMW went to pit lane. He's, of course, started up inside the top 5. And this is where traffic starts to become a factor as well, Lewis, because there's a Monaco Esports Ferrari off and entering the S's. This is where you've got to be so patient.
That was a suboptimal rejoin right into the side of one of the Altus Esports cars. That was a little bit dicey. Thankfully saw him coming on the rejoin. But yeah, Melgar off the road dropping back down the order. One of those things, like you say, it's so easy to trip up over someone going through the S's section. It's where where speed differential on cars, speed differential on teams is always a little bit much, but actually it was even before that. Got squeezed off a touch there by Team Redline. Of course, Gianni Vecchio's got to make some progress. That might have been a bit much.
Yeah, and I tell you what, it was good car control to not run into the wall. Change for the lead at the front of the touring car class, and a change for the lead in GTD as Apex Racing Team has hit the front in the 98. So I'm not sure exactly how that Porsche has hit the front, and Urano has lost 0.6 of a second just through the exit of the chicane. So as we start the next lap with still 2 hours and 35 minutes to go, is there some damage on the front of the Porsche for the Apex Racing Team?
I'm going to take a wild guess that either he got into the rear end or more likely just went straight down the inside, just had a little bit of a dive in. I don't see anything too bad. We'll take a look now and see if there wasn't how the switch happened. So they're getting past a little bit of the lap traffic. Yeah, dived it straight down the inside. Got to say, really well read by Nicholas Laubish. You did have to worry a little bit about Luis Naja directly behind. But that wasn't too bad. That was, let's say, it was a bit aggressive. Obviously, Alejandro Sanchez, I mean, he's pretty good around here. They did win by a couple of laps. He got 3 wide.
And this is on the run to turn 6. And now the Apex Racing Porsche will make it 2 wide, 2 rows deep as we funnel into the crucial turn 7. It's tighter than 90 degrees. The Williams Mercedes will get shoved wide, but will just about hold on. Noah Zark down the back straightaway, and they're 3 wide once more.
Oh my goodness, a little bit of damage here on the front end of the Mercedes-AMG Team Williams Esports car. They'll go back into single file ever so slightly, but I guarantee this one won't last. It's a 3.1 second lead for Alejandro Sanchez right now, so everyone's going to want to get involved just a touch. BS Turner looking to the outside, going into the chicane. Like you said, still 2 by 2. You've got one of the Pure Sims cars. There's a bit of contact. Williams Esports have gone off also. Oh my goodness, it was Apex that's gone off with them. Johan Haaf, rather, not Pure Sims, where I'll go from that. Just getting into a little bit of contact. It was always going to happen.
And now they still fight through the final corner. Taking advantage is Alejandro Sanchez. 4 seconds clear of the BS Turner car that now runs in second with 2 Mercedes for Urano stacked up behind. This is where it is going to be important that we have safety cars. Yeah. And they're going to get triggered in sensible ways. We're not just throwing safety cars in there for the sake of throwing safety cars out. You're not allowed to take the automatic tow that iRacing offers you back to pit lane. You have to request the tow from the race control, and if the race director elects that you're in an unsafe place to get said tow, we will get a caution. And given what we've already seen so far, you'd bet more likely than not that we're going to get one. Here's the run into the chicane, Lewis.
Yeah, how was this not a safety car after all this? I mean, just the side-by-side, you can see the BS Turner, a little bit of air between them. Same as really, to be honest, what was dealt to the Apex Racing Team car. Obviously managed to get back going again, thankfully. I was expecting to be a much, much larger crash, to be honest. Obviously rejoining and having everyone go round them. But it is what it is. Like you say, when you're 2 by 2 all the way through the chicane, it's dicey. Think of it this way, if you're in the 4th, 5th car in that train, it's really hard to pick out your turning point, your braking point, where you're actually getting back on the power, as we're seeing even more of it.
Our poor race control guys have already got about 5 different things reported to them, as now we've got side-by-side and maybe swarming the Core Sim Racing Honda. They'll just about figure this out. This is the scariest moments as well. The first time through the traffic when everyone is still bunched together. Oh. And now going off the track, going both of the BMWs. The BS competition and the Redline BMW works entries come to blows. I think they were 3 wide on the run to turn 1. It was always going to end in tears.
Yeah, for BS competition, I mean, they were looking really strong there. But like I say, kind of getting caught up in what was happening with the BMW Team Redline car ahead. I mean, yeah, very messy moment there. BS Turner on the defence, got a couple of the Urano Esports cars directly behind, the Mercedes-AMG Urano and the Urano Esports Data Grid cars right on the rear end of that BS Turner, getting past Arnage on the exit of, like you say, it looks like it's a 90-degree right-hander. It's slightly more than that. It's slightly off-cambered, and it is the most awkward corner I think I've ever come across. I've never done it right.
It's so painful, and every time you do it, you take it a different way. Swap for the lead of touring car, by the way, amidst all the sea of GTD craziness, as now R8G back to the front. Side by side into the chicane. The outside becomes the inside. Urano squeezes through on the BMW, and now the 91 will try and follow.
Yeah, Lexi Nessov there coming through. Like I said, Laubish looking for his opportunity, almost pushing his teammate up towards the final corner. Bit risky here. It's still totally flat. You can take quite a tight line through there and bounce over the curbs. It's not too bad, but BS Turner's still trying to do something. Reynard Alvar, I mean, he's driven the BMW M4 an awful lot, and he's really putting on a show here.
Up they go into 3, and now squeezed wide. You'll murder some cones, and there will go the 91. Might be a slowdown penalty, and going past goes the Williams Esports Razor car as well, as Carl Janssen needed no second invitation there. And it shows the treachery of continuing to fight side by side, and why it's also important to have teammates for company as well. Let's bring Ewan O'Leary in for the very first time with about 10 minutes of this race done, and you were listening to some of the radio for the Apex Racing team after their incident down at the chicane.
Yeah, they don't really seem to be blaming anyone for that particular incident that you just saw where they ended up in the gravel. Jamie Fluke just telling his teammate Johan Hart just to get his head down and get on with it, really, after that particular spin. Also just was in the Urano team chat while that was all going on. They're obviously very pleased with that double overtake, of course, but I chuckled to myself just a moment ago. Nicholas Laubis just said the words, "This is the craziest race I've ever been involved in."
I'm loving it as well, and Lewis, you and me have been part of plenty of crazy races, but I tend to agree that so far this has been the craziest one. It is Sanchez that now extends the margin at the front to almost 6 full seconds. We check in with the battle of 2 Porsches. It's hardpoint by Delta Sport in the 99 versus MSI Esports, as in that car Salva Talons tries to attack the back of the 14-year-old Alessandro Di Tullio.
Yeah, I mean, again, we've said about young talent and stuff, but Di Tullio being on the younger aspect. Let's take a look at what happened into T1. Couldn't speak English there for a second, but never mind. Number 71 just getting tagged a little bit there. It's Bruno Spengler behind the wheel, I think, of the BS competition car. Just into the side ever so slightly, and then collected him for a second time, just for good measure. Very awkward there into the first corner, got to be said.
It's such a tricky one as well, given the differential in speed and front-wheel drive versus rear-wheel drive. TCR cars are fast, let's not get that wrong, but they just develop speed in different ways. We've already got a car retiring, Full Send Racing reporting too much damage to the 158 apparently, and BMW Team Redline, the ones that took the biggest of the whacks in that moment at turn 1. I think that's the last that we'll see then of Maximilian Benecke and the BMW Team Redline number 71, as that is a Lamborghini, excuse me, a BMW and a Lamborghini trying to work through some traffic. What did we say during our Michelin keys to the race? Traffic management and spend as little time on pit lane as possible.
Yeah, and obviously we've seen a few already breaking some of those rules straight away, and very, very unfortunate. But this is the problem when you... So Alejandro Sanchez, right, is in a beautiful position right now, because every time he comes up to the back of a touring car, he can navigate it as he sees fit. He doesn't have pressure on his rear end. He can afford to almost cost himself a second to gain it back later on. No worries, not pressure. It is what's allowing him to even clear out even further. 5.8 seconds now. This race has only been going on for 13 minutes. I know Alejandro Sanchez is good, but yeah, like this is the joy of like being able to do it by yourself. Meanwhile, when you look back to Alexei Nesov, now sure he's got his teammate in Laubish directly behind, but they've had to fight really hard with the BS Turner car of Talva, with the Williams Esports Razor car of Janssen, and to be fair, Ascari Rene's also joined into it. As we look back towards that train, you can also see Gianni Vecchio closing in on all of this, and between that you've got Ladich as well. It's a big train, and when you're navigating the touring cars for the GTD category, you've got to worry about what's on your rear end. Is that guy going to go for a look? And the answer is yes.
Carl Janssen in the bright green Mercedes that you can't miss will dive to the outside, and we've already seen a handful of cars have issues there, and teams are talking about that internally, about staying off that danger zone. And so Carl Janssen goes for the move, will lose out for the time being, as Rainer Talvar grabs 4th position once again. In terms of big movers, let's just give a shout out to Hardpoint by Delta Sport, who started down in 24th in GTD, are up to 12th position so far. Pearson's in the GTD class as well. They're up 7 spots. In a slightly smaller TCR field, we haven't seen so many big movers, but Nicole Foggy, after not punching in a qualifying time, has actually worked his way back up into the top 10. We haven't really talked about points, Lewis. We haven't really talked about championship. Very crowded things, lots of things to talk about at the start of this season, of course. $25,000 on the line across of the 2 classes. Our champion, of course, will walk away with the lion's share in both of them. But you score points not just in the qualifying session and in the race sessions as well. It's a point system that anyone who has watched IMSA before will be very familiar with.
Yeah, and again, it's kind of one of those things that we like to imitate the whole shebang, basically everything. It's 350 points for racing, which sounds like a crazy large number, but obviously then it's 320, 300, 280 and stuff. The points differential between the top two is 30 points, so it's a fairly large bonus. It's the largest gap on them as you would expect. That's a good point scoring system, not pointing things at anyone, just a couple of friends as well that will definitely not have an idea. I think Ewan O'Leary is probably rolling his eyes right now. But yeah, 350 to 320, then 300, and basically just so on 20 down to outside of the top 10, and then it moves down in tens apiece. But there are points for everyone. There are points for... If you finish the race, you get some points, and that can be important later on. It's only a 4-round championship. Whilst you'd say you need to nail every single round, I would say absolutely not. Just do as good as you can, because you might end up contending for the chance for the final round. No one's going to have a perfect season.
Let's bring back in Ewan O'Leary down on pit lane as we still continue to work past TCR traffic. That is the Honda Racing official entry with Carl Whitmer and Jacob Abel behind the wheel. But Ewan, you've been hearing some chatter within the Williams Esports Razor camp about how drivers in front are expected to battle one another.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I just heard Daniel Lafuente and Carl Janssen conversing a little bit about the battle that they're about to, that Rainer Talvar is about to have with Nicholas Laubisch over the next few laps. It could get a little bit interesting there. We'll see what happens. But more importantly, in the Williams camp, we're hearing there is some damage to the number 55, reported damage after their contact on the side of the car. Looking slightly understeered for the moment, but they're not entirely sure how much it's affecting them.
Love it. Thank you, Ewan. Ewan assisted by Lorenzo Bonder down on pit lane. Our version, basically, of Shea Adams. Working very hard and having to run around a lot, I can tell you that. We watch a battle in the touring car category. Martin van Lozenoord is starting to break away. 1.2 seconds clear of Kieran Harrison, who won the Hyundai NE Global Festival earlier this year, before then moving teams from Core Sim Racing, along with Corentin Gunes, to Sim RC, who he now shares a car with in that 176. I thought the 176 was going to be the favorite. Lewis, a lot of the teams are complaining that the Honda was going to be nowhere near the Hyundai in terms of speed, but Van Lozenoord, R8G, it's not a surprise to see them at the front, if we're being honest.
Yeah, I mean, I've driven the Hyundai around here, and I mean, it is hooked up beautifully. Martin van Lozenoord, I mean, let's be honest, this is as close to an open wheeler as you can get, right? And Martin van Lozenoord's good at open wheelers. I mean, I don't know how a driver that's so good at open wheel competition is so good in a touring car. I mean, it's totally different. And he is just hooked. I mean, obviously, you know, if you're a good driver in anything, you're going to be a good driver in anything, basically. But Van Lozenoord's just absolutely on it right now. Like I say, Kieran Harrison directly behind. And I have raced with Kieran Harrison in the touring cars around Road Atlanta, actually. And by raced with, I mean I was on the same grid at different bars. I was fifth. He was like 25 seconds down the road in 15 minutes. But we're not talking about that. We'll not talk about that at all.
So
incredible talent.
What we should talk about is the battle of the fire-breathing McLarens. It's great. Yes, it's a bit old in the tooth, but this McLaren MP4-12C is magnificent, especially when the fires are out the back of it. But we should talk about drive time. Minimum drive time is about 45 minutes. Both cars, in terms of classes, GTD and touring car, will go about an hour in terms of the window. Now, how do you plan around your strategy when it comes to these windows? Because, Lewis, the major thing, of course, is safety cars will always throw a spanner into the wrench, but teams are also only expected to change tires once at the very most in this race. For GTD, it will be when they do their driver changes. Some touring car teams have talked about potentially not taking any Michelin rear tires and just using the fronts, because, of course, in touring cars, you work the fronts very hard.
Yeah, it's kind of... The strategy for 2 hours and 40 minutes is really, really difficult, because like I say, we're expecting them to be around hour-long stints. So obviously it's 2 hours 40 minutes. That means that one of your stints is basically going to be an hour and 40 minutes long, which is perfectly within regulation. That's an hour and 55 is the maximum for a driver. It's just about which way round you do it. Do you kind of run the strategy backwards, do an hour on this stint, then do 40 minutes with potentially your lead driver, and then do the final stint of an hour with your second driver from that point? Or do you, and this is kind of the way that I would do it, which I know a lot of teams kind of have it, it's almost a bit controversial, a bit risky, which is put your second driver in now. Put your second driver in to start the race. They do an hour, and then bang on the hour mark, or as far as you can get to, you switch out to your main driver, to your primary driver, and they do an hour for you. It's
very much like it is in the real world, right, Lewis, where you'll often in Pro-Am classes, like our GTD class, so WeatherTech Sports Car Championship, yes, this is the elite of sim racing, but the reality is there's always one driver that's faster. Yeah, like you say, you kind of almost want to get their stint out of the way a little bit and then focus on the meaty part of the race. Because what you don't want to do is, say for example, you do that, you do it the other way around. You have, like, for example, Alejandro Sanchez, who's in for an hour now and then is in for 40 minutes after this to do that stuff. But then what if there's a safety car with 50 minutes to go? You've kind of cost yourself on that. Either way, we'll discuss this ad nauseum, I'm sure. Johan Half, though, making up a spot, coming back up the order just ever so slightly. Yeah, he's on the fight back around the outside. Not really fought, if we're being honest. That Apex Racing Porsche just seems to be leaps and bounds the fastest of the Porsche 911 GT3Rs out there. Of course, the outgoing Porsche 911 GT3R to be replaced by the 992 generation GT3 car for 2023. Up above with 20 minutes done in this race, and now closing on the sister TCR machine. All funnel through on the run down through turn 3 in front. This is where it's so dangerous down through the S's. You got to get it done by now, because you're going to be trapped behind all the way through to the crucial turn 5. That's why you'll see cars being nice and aggressive, Hearth having to back out of it, but putting cars crucially between him. And all of this, Lewis, is traffic management, which you can't learn in a classroom. You learn by going out there and being in situations. And you've got to adapt, because this is not, it's not a combination in classes that a lot of the drivers will actually be that used to. That's the thing, is that normally if you're in a GT3, well, what's the second class? Normally a GT4, or you're actually more expecting prototypes. You expect the GT3 to be the slower one. Having it to be GTD versus touring cars when it comes to the two that are battling in lap traffic, it is tricky, because you've got to be able to adapt and understand what the other class can do. It's always really important in multi-class racing to understand both classes, to essentially drive both classes on a fairly frequent basis, because then you understand that, I don't know, potentially going around the outside of turn 1's not a good idea, which I'm sure we'll see someone make a very costly error with at some point today, and it's not wise. One thing that we'll note as well, those that are more experienced with iRacing will ask, is there an incident limit for today's race? And no, there is not. However, that does not mean that track limits are not being monitored. If you repeatedly abuse track limits, we have a race control team almost in double digits behind the scenes working. So they will find you and they will catch you. But also, too, again, live race control is investigating stuff. And like I said, they are being kept busy, because I've just been tracking the incidents as they come in. And outside of everything on the start, with the drivers that got penalties before we even got underway, there's about 9 different things that race control is working through. So they're going to be busy, and that's going to factor into how things play out as well. Side by side, Door Esports gets past the 88, one of the Monaco Esports Ferraris, and it's Moritz Lohner that is on the climb up forward. Now, I should talk a little bit about Moritz, because he's got a fascinating history, Lewis. An experienced sim racer, and now after 2 years in the real world, sadly, that journey has come to an end. Yeah, unfortunately, the second season of the DTM Trophy didn't quite go to plan. Had a couple of podiums, but finished outside of the top 10 of the championship after the season finale at the Hockenheim Ring. I mean, it is what it is. Those are sometimes the thing. As much as that journey might be coming to a close, does not mean that his time in motorsport is done. Now, I'm sure there'll be other opportunities. There's plenty more on the horizon. And if not, we'll see him back full-time in sim race, which I am all about. Love Moritz Lohner. He's such a talent and such a great personality as well. I mean, we do have a lot of individual personalities in sim race, and Moritz is he's pretty calm. And he's someone that could have been in the Porsche Tag Heuer Esports Super Cup if his real racing schedule had allowed him to compete more in the qualifying series that we covered on RaceSpot TV earlier this year. First penalty has come on through, by the way. It is a drive-through penalty for a jump start. We did see a couple of checkups and whatnot with things going on and cars reporting damage, and it is Triton Racing in the McLaren that apparently has got the provisional penalty so far, but it's only the initial one. Who knows if there's more still to be talking about. This is Pure Sims, now trying to defend a top 10 spot as the Mercedes-AMG Williams Esports team, and Luis Naja tries to work on past Alexander Davidson.
Yeah, trying to get their way up into the top 10. I mean, I'd take the all-important top 10. Points-wise, like I said, you get points for every finish, so it's only a little bit of an extra advantage. But you want to start the season in the top 10. I've said before, with these results, is that the difference between 10th and 9th, and even 10th, 8th, 10th to 6th, really, yeah, sure, you get some more points, but I'm not really bothered. It's top 10. Your top 10s, top 5s, podium, those are the big bits to move on. 11th, you don't want to fit there.
I'm disappointed you handed me commentary for the time being. Yes, because Raphael Joust, as close as we could get, is trying to defend from Nicole Fogg, as that is... and illustrating just how tricky pit lane entry can be. One of our talking points once we got to a pit lane cycle. Jersey Glatt coming down to serve his drive-through penalty has, incurred the need to spend more time on pit lane, unfortunately.
Yeah, I can only assume that he's come in too fast, maybe clipped a little bit of the grass and gone bang straight into the wall. I mean, to be fair, if he was in an R8G, that would almost be comical. Alas, he is in a Triton Racing that is slightly less so, and also at the wrong track, but we'll be dealing with that later on, don't worry, in the season when we go to the Laguna Seca. But that's fine. It's an easy mistake to make. It's a tricky pit entry. You're pulling it right and driving down there aggressively. Either way, here is a switch as the Mercedes-AMG Team Williams car does get past Luis Nasher, does get past Alexander Davidson and up inside the top 10.
And while that's happened, there's been a switch around for the lead, and I think Martin van Lozenoord has made an uncharacteristic mistake.
Oh.
But I'm wondering if it was a mistake or...
Maybe tyres.
Tyres or traffic, because, let's be real. There's no one around, so, I mean... Unfortunately for the Dutchman, the first point of logic would take us to it was a mistake maybe coming out of turn 7, because especially in this TCR car, if you run wide and you're on the grass, you're getting no power. Look how much they cut as well. We're hearing in our ears there was contact. The car looks okay though. I need to see a replay.
But I'll tell you one thing about that car that looks okay. The livery. Right, so it's big. Oh, dive down the inside into 5. Ooh, I mean, yeah.
Not a passing place, let's be real.
No, it's too high on average speed.
Exactly, and even for the TCR touring cars, excuse me, they enter the complex with so much speed and they can really grip. So it's a shame, unfortunately, for Van Lozenoord to lose the lead like that. However, we've still got stuff going on. Second drive-through penalty for things on the start. Carbon, so 2 of our McLarens, Lewis, have had penalties. And crucially for Carbon, that's their second penalty of the race after the misregistration to start things off.
Yeah, it's first round of the season's not going their way. But to be fair, you rack up a few more and then you've done your quota of penalties for the season. It's out of the way. You've got 3 perfect rounds ahead. That's how it works, right? You don't get into anyone's bad books. But yeah, not the way they want to start. Cova on the attack on Aspar. Now, this is a car that Cova are very familiar with. Of course, they've got a couple of cars out there, but they're in two different cars. Of course, this is their BMW M4. Their Ferrari's a little bit higher up the road, but Antiola behind the wheel, diving it down the inside, getting past the Aspar car, and that is for 22nd, what will be 22nd position now. So it's not what we'd expect Cova, certainly not in that car, but they are moving forward.
It speaks to the depth of this GTD field, right? Even though, so let's clarify for the viewers, each manufacturer was offered 2 guaranteed spots. They could nominate any teams and they'd be guaranteed spots. Of course, Mercedes, BMW have official sim racing teams they partner with, so it was an obvious choice for them. Honda putting forward the combined Carl Whitmer, Jacob Abel effort, the Indy Lights driver and the TCR driver across the US in the form of Carl Whitmer. But Porsche significantly and notably, you can't beat around the bush here, Lewis. We're missing Porsche Coanda. It's a good thing, though. Porsche's still got the Apex Racing team to fly the flag, and flying it well, are they? Because 10 seconds clear at the front after the victory at Petit Le Mans. Alejandro Sanchez has picked right back up where he left off.
Yeah, gotta say, genuinely, hand on heart, I'll say it outright, no worries. Very disappointed in Porsche Coanda there. I'm like hand on heart. We've seen them miss a few competitions for various reasons. We're not going to go into it too much. They've missed a few series for various reasons. Why not take part in it? I mean, they've got a long list of drivers that are very, very talented, and I'm pretty sure not all of them are busy right now to enter just one car or whatever. And it's one of those things that when we were announcing the series, I was thinking that, we're going to get Team Redline in. We were definitely going to get a Porsche Coanda. Definitely. With their partnership, surely. And they're not here. So throw them under the bus.
Yes, throw them under the bus. Sorry, I'm not just laughing because you're throwing them under the bus. I'm laughing because there was a warning that came through for track limits, the CrowdStrike Racing TCR touring car entry for abusing the track limits a bit too much. And so the message back from the team, we were just testing out the rules. It's fine. Already Race Control have acted quickly, by the way, for what happened to R8G, Lewis. But let's head down to Ewan O'Leary because he's got an update on that Biela car.
Yeah, absolutely. After that dive, it didn't take Race Control very long to decide what to do about it. Drive-through penalty to that Biela Racing Team Euronics car. I don't think anyone's surprised by that. I just so happened to be in the R8G team speak at the time, which was a coincidence. They were very glad about that, as you can imagine. The gap closing down for the lead in touring car at the moment.
DeTulio trying to defend, though, as the 97 continues to find his way forward. Always great to have that insight from pit lane. Thank you, Ewan O'Leary. Continuing, though, to be frustrated. To update, 16-year-old Alessandro DeTulio is frustrating one of the most adaptable sim racers, period. Johan Hart is someone that has competed in rallycross, different types of road racing across the platforms as well. And you know he's on a charge right now after how this race has started.
Yeah, and I'm sure he'll be making a pretty big dive, and it's going to come immediately down into 6. That's a big send. Wow, what a move. Going straight down the inside. DeTulio read that brilliantly, by the way, to leave the door open and kind of like, okay, right, let's not mess around with this guy. He's on the charge, half down the inside, properly sends it in, and boom, picks up the spot. I mean, he needs to do it. He needs to pick him off as quick as he can. He can't waste time dilly-dallying and not picking them up straight away. And now Pure Sims might find their way through also.
DeTulio bringing some of that real-world experience. When someone goes for the dive, sometimes it's better to just let them go. Now it's the Pure Sims Lamborghini that will get on through. A bit more dirt kicked up. Quick manufacturer update. Porsche leads a Mercedes and a BMW. 3 manufacturers on the podium in GTD. The best of the Ferraris is up in 6th with Kova looking strong in a car they have very little experience in, to be completely fair to them. Pure Sims the best of the Lamborghinis down in 12th. The McLaren struggling today with Nicolas Rubelar 15th. Of course, Arnaud familiar with this car. They put it on pole position to kick off the iRacing special event calendar in the 24 hours of Daytona. That was with Ricardo Rico behind the wheel, who is no longer with the team, but still a very strong lineup. Bit of a checkup for the Ferrari there, who ran wide through turn 3 on the plunge down into the S's, and that is without a doubt the most treacherous spot. Manufacturer update in touring car. It is Hyundai that leads Honda, that leads Hyundai, that leads Honda. It doesn't get more. Yeah, it doesn't get more equitable than that, though. I think overall, despite the fact that some of these drivers did have some fair concerns about BOP, the nature of racing, multi-class racing, it's playing out all right now.
Yeah, no, I will say I'm really glad to see that in the touring cars, because again, I have raced around Road Atlanta in the touring cars a little while ago. Fair enough, as we got a little bit of whoa, this is scary. Okay, that is very scary with the touring cars. With the GTDs.
Oh my word!
There, wow.
Was there yeah, I think that Maniti Lamborghini was on the grass. Is there damage?
It's got damage on the front, yeah.
Yeah, it's going slow. Whoa, we're going to need a replay. Update from Race Control as well. Delta Sport get a hard point by Delta Sport, in their 99 Porsche. Also get a drive-through penalty for their part at the start. I think it's fair to say one of the things a lot of the teams, as well as Race Control, will be reviewing is the start procedure at the close of this race. There is that 99 back down to pit lane, and now 3 wide for a moment on the climb up into turn number 3. It's touring cars taking advantage of GTD chaos, and it's CrowdStrike working forward.
Yeah, this is getting a very sketchy. Up to 7th position now. That CrowdStrike cars go. Mirror Esports also in turn. Might be one a bit lower down, but it's dicey. This is the thing you got, like, just there, like on that lap, you're getting a real good showing as to the differential in speed, how hard it is. There comes the Altus car through the middle. You're coming off the corner, you're kind of going one way, going back the other, going back the other. It's absolute madness. And you know me, I love touring cars. I would not want to be on this grid right now. And that is no disrespect to the championship or to any of the drivers. I mean, this is excellent racing. I'm just terrified of it.
And to that point, let's head back to Ewan O'Leary, who's been listening to the touring cars as we continue this constant flow of multi-class traffic.
Yeah, we just saw that big train of cars going down the back straight there towards the final chicane. I was listening into CrowdStrike in the 199, and they were chuckling down, well, not the 199, sorry, but they were chuckling down the straight almost because they were just in disbelief, utter disbelief about what was happening around them. It was quite unbelievable. And Maniti Racing as well, I just jumped in with as well from the GTD team. They said they described it as spicy. I don't know, but yeah, it's everybody is just absolutely just in disbelief, as I said, about the traffic and what's happening.
BS competition, a little bit of contact to the back of the Mirror Esports. More contact up the top at turn 3, and that might be a safety car. Semper Racing, Mirror involved, Raphael Joustin, Gergo Baldi coming to blows. So this is important, and we should point this out, Lewis. These TCR cars, these touring cars in iRacing, they have the new damage model, but because the GTD cars do not, these cars revert to the older damage model where they can take a little bit more of a beating. And that's why I think we'll get away with this one as both cars leave the scene of the incident.
Yeah, I'm looking at that car being like, that ain't right. Yeah, because I'm well used to ripping the front. I'm well used to having clean races and seeing everyone else with the... Anyway, like I say, an incident like that, it's always going to happen. We'll take another look. So, obviously, Gergo Baldi's had a bit of an issue there with Bruno Spengler, and then Joust around the outside kind of chops over Gergo Baldi a little bit there. Got away with it, I think.
It's a light contact, to be fair.
I think Gergo Baldi got away with it as well.
Did he do the 360 period? That Maniti car is really slow. Already a lap down, and I think just trying to stay out of the way. Like to see it. Good, respectful racing from Gonzalo Vergara as Maniti head back into that Lamborghini after their partnership with T3 Motorsports came to an end just a couple of months ago. It's good to see the big green machine back on my screen and not have to worry about their rabid fan base complaining that I continue to call it Maniti instead of T3 Motorsports.
Yeah, because it wasn't T3.
It was a Maniti Motorsport. It was a Maniti car.
We had a few arguments there. It's not T3. It was never a T3 car. Yes, they had T3 in the name. It was the livery never changed. And so, yeah, we can bin that one off. That's fine. We're back to just straight up Maniti. That car, you can see the damage on the rear end. They've clearly received quite a bonk. Probably coming down in that break. We did kind of see them going off. I think it was more than one of the touring cars got in the rear end of them in the braking zone coming down into the chicane, obviously at T10 and 11. But oh, sorry, is it? No, sorry, it's not 10, 11, is it? It's 10A and 10B.
Yes, no, it is, because America. I mean, that's why you leave turn 7. The next time you get on the brakes, it's into turn 10A.
10, yeah, of course it is.
It's so logical. 2 more cars with warnings for off tracks and pushing the limits. So race control is keeping atop of this, and drivers trying to take limits as they will always do. You give them an inch, they'll try and take a mile. We watched the battle with Arnage and their McLaren versus one of the Monaco Esports Ferraris. This is the battle for 15th. Every position pays points in this series. So whether you're fighting for 12th, whether you're fighting for 1st, whether you're fighting for 27th, it all matters.
Switch for the race lead in the touring car category. Martin van Loosnoord's taken over from Harrison once again. I think I might be on the back stretch now, but a switch. It's not even on the back stretch. It's straight up into T3. After it must have been a move down into T1, but Martin van Loosnoord, he's responded after that incident. Of course, it was up into this corner here, up at turn 5. It was Biela down the inside. They've got a car waiting in the back, and that'll be the Aspar one that's just waiting to get the move done. That's how you overtake some touring cars at turn 5. You wait patiently and then just get straight past them on the exit of the corner because it's not that hard.
Of course, remember, yellow for the TCR touring cars on the wing plate and on the mirrors. It's green for GTD on the wing plate and the mirrors as these two wind up. And these two are the class of the field right now. 5 seconds clear of Cone Cropman, who is feeling pressure from Valentin Mandanock. And remember, Mandanock had his issue in the opening 5 or so laps of the race. This is a replay of how the switch happened.
Too wide.
And I wonder if traffic was involved because you saw a car up the front. Then they were 3 wide for a moment as Hardpoint by Delta Sport got past.
Yeah, I'm not sure there was. I mean, the car does get a bit understeery. From experience, the car does get a bit understeery going through the final corner. I think it's no, it is flat in a touring car. But as you're going through the stint, it might become a slight lift as the tyres go over the temperature window a little bit. Can we just say, by the way, no bias on liveries and whatever, but how good does that RHG look on that Honda? I think that looks absolutely ace. The material on the blue looks absolutely stunning.
You and I have had this discussion. The RHG liveries over the last 12, 18 months have not been the our favourites.
They've been going down every single time.
Until this one, where they took the DHL Andretti Autosport livery for Romain Grosjean in the NTT IndyCar Series, and they carried it forward half on this car. We saw it debut during the iRacing Indy 500 as well, so it was pretty special. Saw the team manager compete in the fixed Indianapolis 500 here on iRacing, so I agree that's up there. The Sim RC car is up there as well. The Bumblebee is fantastic.
Oh yeah, I mean, to be fair, like, I don't think there are genuinely many liveries on this grid that you'll look at and go, ooh. But like, livery designers these days in sim racing are so good, and they're just on it every single time. And we've got a very pretty field of cars on this grid. But I think the R8G, I need to see all of them like right in front of me right now. But I think the R8G on that Honda is right up there.
If you head over to the VCO Esports social media, you can find the official spotters guide built by the wonderful graphics team at IMSA as Team Redline in their BMW, the 70, gets around the Cova Ferrari. Great move there from Gianni Vecchio. Turn 6 on the outside, not a traditional passing spot, but if you got the grip, you got the confidence, you'll go to it. Let's head back to touring car for the lead, because Kieran Harrison has hit the front once more and getting in front of Martin van Lozenoord, and our pit reporters are focusing on this one quite a lot. Ewan O'Leary, there is a lot of chatter within the Sim RC ranks, not just about the speed out of Martin van Lozenoord, but also just potential fuel mileage gains playing a factor as we come to the end of the first 40 minutes.
Yeah, absolutely. As there you see the replay of the pass, they were very concerned down at SimRC actually that the time that R8G spent behind them would have benefited them in terms of strategy. They're not entirely sure how far that Honda is going to be able to go in terms of fuel, and if it's any better than the Veloster that they have at their disposal. It does have a bit of an advantage on paper, I suppose, in terms of percentages that they've got, but it doesn't really matter when you've got the slipstream and you're saving fuel in that respect. But that's what they're a little bit worried about right now. I'm a little bit confused though, because when I left them, they were saying there's probably not much point in us going through, and they just have. So who knows?
40 minutes comes to an end. We've still got 2 hours to go. Only 5 minutes until these drivers can get out and fulfill their drive time regulations. But let's give you an hourly update with 40 minutes done in this first round of the 2022 IMSA Esports Michelin Global Championship. And we'll start with the GTD class, where it is domination so far from the Apex Racing team and Alejandro Sanchez. 10 seconds clear of the rest of the field. They are truly living up to the hype after winning here 7 days ago in the iRacing Petit Le Mans. Then in second, it's the first of the Mercedes official teams. They're being chased down by BS Turner in the split livery design that everyone loves, including myself, but it's a hammer and tongs fight between the two of them, and it will be Reino Talbot that gets in front of Alexei Nesov as they fight up on the run to turn number 3. Behind them, the best of the Williams Esports Mercedes runs in 4th, with Carl Janssen still behind the wheel, while Nicolas Laubisch runs in the 2nd of our Urano Mercedes. He completes the top 5. Salvatale in 6th for the MSI Porsche, with Jaden Ladick, the Australian, behind the wheel of the 44 Monaco Ferrari. Team Redline's BMW and Gianni Vecchio in 8th after struggling and qualifying and seeing the sister car already retiring. 8th the best for them, with Kova in their Ferrari 9th, and the Apex Racing team rounding out the top 10 on a recovery drive. Lewis, walk us through the touring cars.
Yeah, indeed. Sim RC and R8G in a full-on fight at the top of the touring car category at the moment. It is going the way of Kieran Harrison and Sim RC. Martin van Lozenoord just having to settle for 2nd place at the moment. Valentin Mandelac recently got past Klopman at the moment. So it's an R8G, 2 cars on the podium. The 188 ahead of the 108. Arnage Competition dropped back to 4th spot after a very aggressive start to the race. It's been a super effort for them to have worked up a little bit. Impulse Racing a bit by themselves, got to be said. They're sat in 5th position at the moment. I think all the questions really is to how far back up the order a Pure Sim's going to get. Of course, they did start from pole position. They had an issue early on. They had to come into the pit lane for a penalty before even the start of the race. They're running at the moment down in 12th in class, but do not count them out for doing something a bit later on, especially if there is a safety car.
Still down through the S's, more traffic as MSI and R8G will be side by side. That is the worst place to be side by side. Redline forces it down the inside of turn 5, and their BMW will separate Arnage out from the 108 with Valentin Mandernach behind the wheel of the 2nd R8G Hondas. Remember, Hondas were not preferred when it came to at least pace. Some thinking 0.3 slower per lap. But with 2 Hondas on the podium right now, the critics are being disappointed. Another retiree to join the pile, as it seems as though Triton Racing become the 3rd retirement today, along with Full Send in the touring car category and BMW Team Redline, the first of our retirements. This is that battle for 2nd. And yeah, I mean, I alluded to it earlier, Lewis. You put the BS split livery with Turner on the car, you know I'm a fan of it.
I know you're massively biased towards it. Yeah,
I am.
It's fine. I did. So obviously, I spent the weekend at Donington Park. We looked around some of the little model cars and stuff here, obviously, that people bring along to race. And I saw a Turner car, and all I thought, I was like, someone's get BS on the other side of that. Like again, it's just it's growing on me. I didn't hate it. I never have done. I think it does look very nice. It's a good livery, sure, but the more I see it, the more I'm like, ooh, yeah, no, I do. Oh, yeah, it's growing on me. I'm starting to really, really like it.
You've got Andy Blackmore on the left side of the car, real world livery genius, and on the right side, a VCO Simi Award Hall of Famer in Juan at iLiveries, who probably has designed about half the paints for this field, for being honest. You've got BS Competition, you've got Urano, I'm pretty sure. Oh, that 90's got a lot of damage to the back of it after the start. We didn't really see that before. Williams are a iLiveries customer as well.
Yeah,
Maniti is. Yeah, like basically, like I said, half the field probably has worked with one at some point or the other.
That's why the liveries are so good.
Yes, and if you saw any of the preview IMSA liveries that we had when we announced this IMSA Esports Championship back at the State of the Sport in August, all those liveries were built by Juan as well. Track back a battle for GTD as we enter within 15 minutes of the pit stop window, and this is where you wonder, undercut, overcut, track position. How do you play this out? And what do you do with the tires, and what do you do with the drivers? Remember, these Michelins are only expected to be changed, Lewis, when you do the driver swap.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, for me, for this kind of race, with the possibility of a safety car on the horizon, you have to go as long as possible. I'd say, again, if I was running a strategy, it's very easy to say from up here. I'm switching. I'm switching driver in the pit lane this time, straight away. Well, in the first 15 minutes.
I'm not going to say which car it is. Just it's just that's Martin Van Lozenord. Van Lozenord's gone off the track in that R8G Honda.
Is there any damage on the car?
It looks okay. Door Esports involved as well. Now, Gregor Baldi, unfortunately, in the Mirror Esports car that had the issue at turn 3 about 20 minutes ago, has another issue. So, a touring car is being very much involved in stuff. And I'm just basing this assumption on the fact that Door Esports was around Van Lozenord, and the fact that I believe the driver was counted off the track, Michel Rack. I'm pretty sure something happened amongst the two of them. Ewan O'Leary confirming no damage for Van Lozenord. And talk us through this, Lewis.
Yeah, it was Arnage. It was Arnage. I can't believe he did Morris Lerner like that. Unacceptable. But yeah, Arnage just getting into the side a little bit. That one, I kind of understand what Arnage was doing. But yeah, it doesn't matter. So basically doored him straight off. It would have been great if it was Durden straight off the track, but nope, that's fine. It is what it is. Again, there's a little bit of contact. No harm, no super harm. It's just cost him 3.5 seconds.
And word is that the apologies have already gone out from Arnage to RAG. Not a big surprise there. And I'm sure that the Van Lozenord, as someone who's usually, I'm assuming in the faster class, because as an open wheel specialist, if he does endurance racing, he's probably doing it in a prototype. This is probably his first competitive experience of having to deal with the faster class, trying to work his way past him.
We've chatted about it quite a bit, as we can see on board here with Dion Fiallo at the moment.
What is that headphone angle?
I said, like, the weirdest VR. I'm really, I sometimes, like, part of me when I watch other people do this, when like a camera comes on and they start judging. I'm like, no, you can't judge someone like that. But there is something when you're in the commentary booth where you just see, you're like, what is that? Oh my, that is get you. It's just, you just can't help it. It's just it's just like this inner fire. But I have no idea why
he's like that. Yes, we'll try and
maybe he's got perfect hair.
Ooh, and he's trying not to mess it up.
Doesn't want to ruin it. I think we should do commentary. We should do our commentary like we're getting word in our ear is aerodynamics. From our broadcast director, Hugo Luis. That is very good. That is very good.
So, of course, there's a story around this partnership. Of course, CrowdStrike Racing, long-time supporters of motorsport, but to run this car, they partnered up with SRC Movano Corsa, a well-known team, but partially the amalgamation of two sim racing Italian teams that came together to form, I think, what many will think the biggest Italian sim racing team. Lewis McLean is trying the Dion Fiat, by the way.
It's not comfortable. I said this headset is definitely slipping off my ears. I'm not about this.
Unfortunately, Lewis and I, we're not next to each other, but we can see each other, which is making this a lot more fun. But Dion left Movano to join Veloce as Veloce jumped back in to the iRacing scene a couple of months ago. But with Veloce not being a part of this series and CrowdStrike / Movano needing a driver, the obvious call was someone they knew was quick and someone they trusted to push the limits, and Dion is probably the best person for the job.
Which I think shows, the don't burn bridges. If you're a part of a team and you want to leave the team, don't burn bridges. And we see this time and time again as MiRA Esports having a big slide through the first corner as a couple of those GTDs were coming through there in this very, very tight battle. You've got Urano in there, you've got MSI, you've got one of the Monaco Esports, and you've also got Redline in there. It's a big slide through the first corner there for Gogo Baldi. But yeah, don't burn bridges when you're leaving teams. Keep that open, because if there is mutual respect, later on some opportunities might come about. You might want to rejoin the squad for whatever reason. Is that one of the full send cars that's completely backwards? Could this be our first safety car? It's stopped on the exit of T5.
It's Oliver Ackerman in, yes, the 185, the only remaining full send racing entry in this, the Honda Civic Type R. He is still trying, I believe, to get back up to speed. He's back with four wheels on the tarmac, but how damaged is this car? There was a moment there as Semper Racing was unsure which way the train of GTDs was going to go. Down the hill they go with MSI hunting down. I tell you what, MSI are now the ones who are quietly working their way forward the most. +9, and we know Salva Talent is quick. And despite losing Alejandro Sanchez, 18 months ago, MSI Esports continues to still be in the thick of the fighting.
Oh, no, I'm still, every time I see an MSI Esports car moving forward, like, oh, here comes Alejandro's. No, it's not. Yep. No, it's Salva Talent. He's doing a great job. I think it was straight around the outside of T1. Never mind. Salva Talent. I was just about to go waffling on about someone else. What a move by Salva Talent. He's got the outside over T3. So this one might be a little bit too much. Laubish with the inside line, but still, somehow, Salva Talent comes out on top. That was two absolutely world-class moves.
We've had another car off the track and another touring car off the track, to be specific. It is the pole position winner after Pure Sins punched their way to the front and then had the 10-second penalty immediately to serve. Konstantin Stolzenberg, I think, has been escorted wide at turn number 3, but what a move that was. Here we'll go. We'll get a look first at what happened with Full Send Racing as they... Now BS naughty. Turner running in second. I would assume that at the very least, Race Control's going to take a look at that one.
Yeah, that is a slam dunk penalty in my book. Yeah, no, I don't like that at all. It's easy to make those mistakes, sure, when you're going through lap traffic and whatnot. But yeah, that to me, it's not even into a corner. It's not a dive bomb. It's not anything. From what I could see, the full send car didn't move, which means the BS Turner car basically drove into the back of them. So yeah, solid no.
And let's head back down to pit lane to get the report from what the team is saying about that Full Send Racing Honda. Ewan O'Leary, what are they saying?
Yeah, the immediate reaction, I'm afraid, from Oliver Ackerman was that this car is absolutely toast. It's obviously his spotter there reassuring him a little bit that they're not out of it yet. They can get some full service, get back in the race at least. But, I mean, just looking at that damage there, it is pretty bad. And not great news for them. Big repairs there. Just a word on the number 90 as well. We're on the subject of damage. We spoke a little bit about the rear end damage. The diffuser's bent a little bit, so's the bumper. It is costing them a couple of kilometres an hour down the straight.
They were 3 wide for a moment through turn 6. It will be the Urano 91 that holds on for the time being. Behind him, it is Monaco's Jaden Ladick and Team Redline's Gianni Vecchio that will squabble and try and work through. I wonder if the 91 is struggling with a little similar damage, because they seem a little down on top end grunt as well. Here comes the prancing horse down the inside, almost with a push from Gianni Vecchio. Urano car trying to defend under the brakes will convert the inside for the second part of the chicane. Vecchio now tries to get past Ladick as they dive down to the final corner.
Yeah, it's going to be brave into that final one with a tighter line. It should be easily flat, though, still in the GTD category, and that was certainly done so. But Gianni Vecchio moves his way up a single spot through all of that. Like I said, just picking up the pieces. How crazy that, though, that you kind of sat there at this point of the race. You think you're over 20 seconds off. We're approaching 1 hour into such a competitive field. And you're 20 seconds off the racing. That does not mean it's done. Not by any stretch of the imagination. Trust me, drama is on the horizon. It always is, but still.
And we're only about 7 minutes away from getting our pit stop window open for both classes. touring cars, limited to about 66% of their fuel capacity. So the 90-minute windows that the drivers might be more accustomed to shortened down to just an hour. Makes it a little bit more difficult, of course, when it comes to planning, when it adds to the strategy element. Of course, the GTDs typically will go at most about an hour. The question will be, who has saved the most in this traffic, Lewis? Because you really want to try and do that.
Yeah, and it's kind of not, again, it's not easy. You've got to, the most important thing, we say it time and time again when it comes to traffic management, is you've got to read the road ahead. Meanwhile, Gianni Vecchio is reading the road directly ahead, trying to get past the Urano Esports car almost immediately at the moment. Nicholas Laubisch going backwards just ever so slightly, but as he's opened up the door, Jaden Ladich is trying to find his way back through in all of this. Got a couple of the touring cars to navigate as they head back into the first corner. Urano hanging on to the spot for now, but I think the Monaco Esports car might have a bit of an undercut rather to come back down the inside as they head up towards T3. No switch just yet, but there's a lot of pressure in this fight, and every time I see it when they get through traffic, I'm getting concerned.
And that's Johan Harth, who's just casually,
just sitting there
in contention now for a top 6 finish.
I love Johan Harth. What a lad.
What a lad, and I tell you, he is racing from the Apex Racing Team facility in Corby. For most of the year, he has been racing from home in France, has finally been able to go over there and will be bouncing back and forth between home base and the Corby home of the Apex Racing Team. Of course, they had their open house just, 2-3 weeks ago. Open doors to the public. You could head down, see the rigs that the drivers compete with, including here today. See behind the scenes a little bit and try out some of the hardware that they were showcasing as well. The BMW got a great run out of turn 7 and converts the draft to a look to the inside down the hill. Vecchio can't overcommit on the brakes, and actually is willing to try and pinch the Urano car a little bit more, uses all the track on offer, and then 3 wide under the bridge. Urano loses 2 and dives to pit lane, signaling the pit window is well and truly open.
Yeah, 5 minutes early, so they're splitting this slightly more evenly across. They're taking 5 minutes off of the hour stint, so dropping it back to a 55-minute stint, which shouldn't be too much of a problem. I would assume that Laubisch is probably going to stay in the car and do a double stint now before handing over to his teammate to do the final hour of this race. This one would expect to be slightly shorter, but again, remember, there's not going to be any... Oh, no, there was a driver switch. Never mind. Cancel that one.
Yeah, I think the wise move is your drive time is done. Get it sorted now. If there's a potential for a safety car knocking on the wood next to me, because we know how my luck is with the commentator's curse, it changes the game as an understatement. Just a 4-round championship, no drop rounds. It's simple, Lewis. You cannot afford a mistake. Consistency wins championships.
Especially when they're so short. This one is not an easy championship. I will just say that. I've commentated on 5-round championships where people that are only on the podium twice in the season win the championship. Consistency is key in a championship like this, but that's not consistent podiums. Honestly,
Urano down, sorry.
But Redline also in, Cover in.
Yeah, I think this is that magic lap. And we get the indication right as well, Lewis. We had a full pace lap, and we've only managed to do about 57 minutes. At best, we're going an hour if you're these cars diving in this time by.
I still feel... I don't know about you. I feel this is too early.
I agree. That's my point.
Yeah, I'm still feeling this is too early. I want to go to the hour. The problem is when you're pitting early at this point, we've seen it time and time again, you're backing yourself into a corner where you're almost guaranteeing this kind of way when you're coming into the pit lane. You're kind of removing options from later on. What if a safety car comes out? And if it comes out genuinely like 2 minutes after your pit stop, this is the moment that you will think back to thinking, oh my God, if we'd have just gone to the end of the fuel tank and then gone back out, we would have been ace for this safety car. I know you can't predict any of that stuff, but you've got to leave the options open. But we're the idiots in the commentary booth.
Here we go. So I think I was about to say it and then I got interrupted. Word from a couple of teams as they were thinking left side tires only, but Gianni Vecchio, after the struggle in qualifying and still searching for cracked position, has elected to take no tires. So will Brabham Esports in their McLaren, trying to work their way forward. These are the gambles that define a series with safety cars.
Oh yeah, big time, big time, big time. I will say, look at the likelihood of a safety car coming into the event, we'd be like, boom, it's like 99%. However, we've seen some pretty sizable crashes. We've seen the cars getting back going again to bring it back round to pit lane, so fair enough.
And crucially, the Porsches have the best fuel mileage, Lewis, because we've got 3 of them going 1 lap longer than everyone except a McLaren and a Mercedes.
And I will just say, by the way, Kieran Harrison, who started pulling away from Martin van Loozenorders, Mantenac gets back up into 3rd because Klopman's come in. This is back in the touring car category. I'm not waffling about GTDs, don't worry. And going completely crazy. Kieran Harrison, late in this stint, obviously fuels down a bit. Clearly the tyres are going quite well in the touring car category because he's just set the fastest lap in that category with a 27.2, about 3/10 faster than his rival in the race. So into the pit lane then, Alejandro Sanchez, still shy of an hour-long stint, but only by 1:20 as he brings it onto pit lane.
You'd assume Half Moon in the Apex and Team 75 Bernard by Sim RC Porsches would follow suit as well. Rubilar in the Arnage McLaren, Fiallo in the CrowdStrike with SRC Movano Mercedes, and then Davidson in the Lamborghini for Pure Sims has done a 34-second stop. And again, I just love that we've got variations in strategy calls right here, because I'm getting word that maybe Redline did left side tires only, but I'm looking at the pit stop times and thinking 41 seconds is no tires, MSI at 48 seconds is 2 tires, 54 seconds for BS Turner, that may be 4 tires.
Yeah, I saw a few teams going up on the tracks. I know Altus could see them in the back and going up on the tracks. Wow, there we go. Alejandro Sanchez up onto the jacks. He's changing tyres. The thing is, let's be honest, Road Atlanta, despite there being a very nice back straight, this place is brutal on tyres.
Well, we haven't talked about track conditions. It's relatively cool because we're racing basically with the real race dates from the 2022 Motul Petit Le Mans. So it's the, the start of the, end of the fall, start of the winter kind of a period. 36 degrees is the track temperature as we run right now, and it's only going to get cooler from this point forward. So the 98, 46.5 seconds in pit lane.
Whoa.
Whoa,
That's a lot of smoke.
Yeah, now was that just related to a car that's had issues being in pit lane, or was there something more to that? To complete the point, Sanchez 46.5 seconds in pit lane. I wonder if that is 4 tires and less fuel. For Team 75 Bernard by Sim RC, 32.8 seconds. That is a short stop and no tires. I think the same we can say for Pure Sims with 34 seconds. There is so much going on in strategy is basically what we're trying to say.
Yeah, I'm trying to wonder, if you've taken 4 tyres and less fuel, does that mean that you're going to do 4 tyres on this stop, take the less fuel, pit with an hour to go, use this, like your second driver will step in and then do the next stint on, because then you're kind of trying to keep the fuel lower on. I don't know. I mean, it's an interesting strategy. That's a good call. I hadn't thought about it, because in that way you're on fresher tyres with a lighter car for longer, rather than doing your second stint. Well, you're doing your 40-minute stint on an hour-old tyres.
Yeah, I'll be honest, I have no clue what's going on, and this is where we are very grateful to have you and O'Leary and Lorenzo Bonda that can go and run around the virtual pit lane and get us that information. So now we're done with this first round of the Virtual Revolution. The 2022 IMSA Esports Michelin Global Championship, powered by VCO, has been caution-free so far. As I knock on wood, let's run you down through the highlights of Hour 1 here at the Michelin Raceway Road Atlanta, because it's been crazy. I mean, just look at this chaos on the start. A couple of cars got penalized penalties due to jumping the start and checking up. But after that, it was really about this too wide, too deep battle through the chicane. A little bit later, we'll talk about that one. But this was just the Urano Mercedes already with damage at the back after the contact on the start, fighting side by side with BS Turner. What a fight we had in the opening stages. And this was just as we started to deal with a little bit of the touring car traffic that would prove to be the story of the race so far. Into turn 3, you saw BS Turner run wide and taking advantage. It was Urano that ran 1 and 2 in the early stages of the race. This is, though, when we started to see just what the traffic was all going to be about. Turn 5, one of the key danger zones, and then showing the difficulty of pit lane entry. Triton Racing coming to serve a drive-through penalty. Made an absolute mess, and big contact they had to dive down once again. Plenty of dive bombs, but good moves as the 97, Johan Harth, went on the offense. After going around at turn 10, he knew he had plenty of work to do. And it's been 2 cars at the front of touring cars. 1 Honda, 1 Hyundai. It's Sim RC versus Roman Grosjean Esports. As it stands right now, it's Corentin Gunez that has just jumped into the car and taken over from Kieran Harrison that leads in touring car, while at the front of the GTD class, it is the Apex Racing team, number 98 of Alejandro Sanchez, that runs 18.5 seconds clear of the rest of the field. It's hard to illustrate and to sum up just what a dominant run it's been so far for that 98, Lewis.
Yeah, they've been. I mean, to be fair, they're continuing on with how they were in the of course, official iRacing Petit Le Mans. One of the, was it the final race in the VCA Grand Slam, or penultimate race in the VCA? Penultimate, wasn't it, in the VCA Grand Slam? I mean, they did an incredible job just basically running away from everyone in that race, and it seems as though they've gone, right, well, that was only a couple of weeks ago, let's copy and paste that performance, thank you very much. And now they lead by an astonishing 18.5 seconds. Coming into this race, I was guaranteeing we would have a train for the lead at this point, because I thought everyone was just going to go on fuel saving, but clearly Apex like, no thanks, mate. No need to fuel save when the stints can be 55 minutes.
No need to fuel save when you're just that fast at the end of the day either. It's the Williams Esports Razor car that gets past Brabham, who of course took advantage of a no-tire call to gain some track position as Daniel Lafuente has taken over from Carl Jansen. We've had the bevy of pit stop times. 32 seconds for Jamie Moon, the shortest in the GTD class. A couple of 41, 46, 50-second pit stops, and then 62 seconds, which is full service. So if you're following on with live timing, head over to timing71.org to follow using their data analysis tools as well. Very intriguing to break apart the race like that. But the reality is, we have no idea how it's going to go. The strategies will converge at the end, and we will figure out exactly who's on top. In touring car, Sim RC and Corentin Gunez. I'm not sure if you caught exactly what happened here, Lewis, but Martin van Lozenoord is now 11 seconds off the lead as Florian Lebigre and Impulse's Chris Shorter fight side by side for third as the South African grabs the final step on the podium.
I'm going to take a wild guess that it was something tyres related through the pit stop, potentially. Whether they took 2 tyres, of course, the 2 tyres you change in a touring car, they ain't going to be left or right. It is going to be the fronts. You don't want to change the rears. You just want to change the fronts. It saves a bit of time as we've got some side-by-side. Impulse racing around the outside. I think they're on slightly more worn tyres as RHD potentially took those fronts, as they've got to work past some of the cars that might be struggling a little bit more. I kind of get it. It's a bold call, though, because the thing is he's changing the front tyres. I was talking about this before we went live with yourself and Ewan O'Leary, is that when you got rear tyres that are worn, but more importantly they're worn, they're warm. They have got a bit of extra grip, which means that when you change the front tyres, your front tyres are cold. They've got to come up to temperature. You turn into somewhere like turn 5, turn 6, turn 7. The front end will not grip because the rear's gripping to the road so much. It's counteracting essentially what the front's doing. It means you've got to deal with Bo Team at boat face for a couple of laps before those fronts come up to temp.
Just remember, when it comes to the touring cars as well, you take tires and fuel at the same time, so you can take front tires hypothetically in the same amount of time as it takes to fill up the tank. However, the slightly shorter time, that's the limited fuel tank means there's not enough time to do the rears as well. That's why we're talking about this potential to try just taking fronts. Some teams put forward to me that potentially they think about taking no tires for the entirety of the 2 hours and 40 minutes. I really don't want to think what those Michelin tires would look like, though.
Right.
Yeah, at the end of that race, a little bit more traffic as we come to the start line once more here at the Michelin Raceway Road Atlanta, nearing 90 minutes to go in this inaugural round of this IMSA Esports Michelin Global Championship. It's been fascinating so far. We started with 44, we're down to 37 running with 3 retirements in touring car. Whoa, a big moment.
A significant amount of air, and unfortunately it blasted Impulse off the road, coming down into T3. I'll let you continue on with your point, don't worry.
No, they'll lose, and now they will have to defend because Arnage Competition and Carlos Diguez will be right behind them. But to be fair, I've forgotten what my point was because that was quite a notable moment.
Yeah, it really was. Nice number on this car. They've clearly chosen the correct number to be displayed. Got to throw him under the bus, but that's a solid F for MSI. That's a mistake I'm sure quite a few have made in their time. We've been through this with iRacing and selecting the wrong number and it just appears in the wrong place, but each their own. Some people... No, I'm not going to say it otherwise.
Yeah, no, you got to be careful here.
MSI will hate me. I do like MSI quite a lot.
You got to be careful as well because MSI is a bit of a moment there as MSI thought about a feint to the inside down through the final corner. MSI is I think the only team which is actually sponsored by our friends at Michelin, so be careful is all I will say. Around the outside once again, the red line blue car just loves that move. Gianni Vecchio works his way up to 4th, and remember he started down in 13th position.
Yeah, it's going to be a bit of a mistake though, as running out a little bit wide goes the MSI Esports car. You've got to be careful coming up over the top there of the crest, because once you've got a car on your inside or kind of directly ahead of you, it's when you're driving in the cockpit. I'm sure most of us that have raced around Road Atlanta at some point, when you're driving within the cockpit, turn 3 is horrible. I love it when you get it right. Oh my god, what a great corner! Opens up such a good section, and then you don't nail it most of the time. When you're regulars like me, it's tough.
Lewis, do you have any interest in an engineering job?
No.
Okay, because Jimmy Antunes from Arnage is apparently listening and thinks you might have the makings of a race engineer.
I
don't know what he's listening to because clearly it's different to what I've listening to.
I appreciate it greatly. I've done some race engineering before and it doesn't go well.
It's so... We have the best job, we have the easiest job in the world. We're sitting down, to be fair, we're just literally looking at what our producer Hugo Luis is sending us and we're talking about it.
Well, take if the GTD strategy is kind of like what I was saying earlier, but if some people have done a lighter tank but 4 tyres, so they're on the lighter tank for longer on those fresher tyres, that's a gigabrain strategy that I definitely wouldn't have come up with. Like I'm literally just thinking about this as we're going, being like, what would they have done in this scenario with the tyre? I couldn't come up with that. For me, it's literally just like fuel it up and go to the end of the spin and just drive quickly. That's fine. Great race engineer.
Getting word from race control, some of these drivers have to be a little bit careful. They are pushing the limits of the track too much. Race control can only take so much before they'll dish out a penalty, and yeah, you don't want to be incurring the wrath of the race control overlords. We'll hit 90 minutes to go then. It is a big margin that we see at both of the front of the classes. Sanchez, 20 seconds clear of Jamie Moon for GTD, with Apex Racing and Team 75 combining to make it a Porsche 1 and 2 with 4 Porsches inside the top 6. They have very much come on strong, with partially that is related to the strategy course. Meanwhile, in touring car, it is the Hyundai Elantra of Sim RC, the 176 with Corentin Guinez now behind the wheel after taking over, I believe, that machine that runs now in front of Martin van Lozenoord. 13 seconds the gap there, with RAG 2nd and 3rd. Somewhere Romain Grosjean is going to be watching and smiling because he's pretty invested in his esports team.
Yeah, we've heard before from the RAG camp, and when I did the Predator Cup with RAG not that long ago in the year, Romain Grosjean, he's not a kind of like a token to the team where it's kind of like, oh yeah, well, we'll run the team under your name, and then maybe you kind of step in for the odd bit of like press or whatever every now and then. No. He is on with the team, not quite every day, but certainly at least every week. He's a busy man, but at least every week he is jumping on with the team. He's having a chat with the team, and I promise you, he is paying attention to what the team does, which I like, because if the team, it's his name, it's his brand. Right? If the team are dangerous, bad, they're at the back, but they're causing incidents or anything like that, that's his name. That's kind of. That he's trusting with these drivers. They're racing under his name, under his banner, and I love that he is so hands-on with it.
And it makes it, I think, even more significant to some degree that Max Verstappen is equally hands-on with Team Redline, as there goes Haas firing it down the inside of Salva Talent. And now we get the battle between Gianni Vecchio and Johan Hart. Apex Racing versus Team Redline. We have seen this so many times in not just iRacing competition, but across the sim racing world, courtesy of your VCO Esports Racing League. To go back to the point on Verstappen, though, for a moment, Lewis, I mean, yes, now the cars have Verstappen's name on the side with the Verstappen.com and the Red Bull Energy branding. However, he is, you know, it's not technically his team. Team Redline is a well-established, known sim racing entity. And Max Verstappen, between Formula One race weekends, I mean, even during a Formula One race weekend, will be on voice chat with the boys, you know, break out a controller so he can come and do iRacing. And I'm just saying, Max, if you're watching, I am challenging you. We have 3 more races this year.
Jump in.
We want to see you on track.
Too right, absolutely. And we know that he does love a good bit of sim racing. He is frequently on it, like I say, very deeply invested within the Team Redline. Let's see if there's going to be the defensive move from Gianni Vecchio. Johan Hart trying to pick up yet another spot on the Team Redline car that we've been speaking about, going for the up and under out of the chicane. Vecchio with the defensive move, 2 wheels onto the grass from Johan Hart. Wow, that was a big bit of defence. As like you say, I'm sure Max Verstappen's keeping an eye on all this. Like I said, David Brabham as well. Mike Yao pointing out in chat, another one who's very invested in sim racing with the Brabham Esports team. And I've seen the WhatsApp group. He is chatting to them every day, making sure they're in line.
Yeah, no, and maybe sometime we can chat with David himself in one of our pre-shows. Here's the look on board with Gianni Vecchio. I don't think, Johnny, you need that handbrake so much, although I'm sure that was more just for the sponsors. Johnny's just coming back from a quick holiday. He was in, I think, sunny Spain. Only landed on Friday night, but, you know, sitting by the beach and enjoying some sun. I'm sure that's the same as sitting at the rig and doing the practice.
I mean, yeah, I don't know. It's something. there is that. You know, I say sometimes you got to relax. You got to go away from things every now and then.
Especially with how busy our sim racing calendar is.
This is like, you know, having a chat with some real motorsport managers and whatnot, and I was chatting to them about like taking part in some esports stuff, and they're like, oh no, absolutely not. But, like, we've had a very busy year to then jump in to do some more. It's like, oh god, the esports calendar is absolutely rammed. And Johan Hart, wow, around the outside like that, what a send!
And even with a wiggle on exit, he will lock down that position and back up into 4th for Johan Hart. What a recovery drive it's been for him so far, and don't forget, he'll hand over to his teammate. 3 wide, and a nervy moment for a second as Redline and Apex almost came to blows. They single filed themselves out because there's a core sim racing Honda touring car in front. Vecchio again, dummies to the outside. You gotta be careful going to the outside through turn 3. Salva Talent willing to allow Gianni Vecchio to survive for the time being.
I was going to say, this is the thing, that Salva Talent is waiting there. He's waiting for his opportunity. And the problem that he's got, in a sense, is that the Pure Sims car's closing in. Alexander Davidson is closing in, so he's going to feel a little bit more needy to get on with this. He likes a good move around the outside up here. Gianni Vecchio tried it a bit earlier on the race successfully, I will add. Now Salva Talent is having a little bit of a look on Gianni Vecchio, but Davidson is right there as well. It's allowed, though, Johan Hart to clear off a little bit. What a drive up to 4th.
We do have a couple of penalties to notify our viewers about, including, crucially, one for that BMW in the center of our focus right now, because they have got a 5-second time penalty for pushing the 88 car off the track while overtaking. So the 88 was the Ferrari of Monaco Esports that had Jaden Layden behind the wheel, but has dropped down, and we kind of missed what happened there, I think, Lewis. But Vecchio's going to have to come down to pit road in the next couple of laps to serve that one. There's also a drive-through for the Williams Esports Mercedes-AMG team, with the 55 having a drive-through penalty.
And Salva Talent is going to get through this time. Almost a little bit of contact as well. Gianni Vecchio just opening up the door a little bit. I thought he was coming to the pit lane straight away, by the way. I thought he was coming straight down to serve it. Alas, that answer was no. And then loses out courtesy of another quality move. I mean, a brilliant one from Salva Talent. Some of these moves in this race genuinely leave me totally speechless, which is not good for a commentator.
Let's head down to Ewan O'Leary, still listening on pit lane, to the number 70 BMW Team Redline car.
It's not only the Team Redline team that are very frustrated, to be honest. There's a lot of people who are starting to lose their rag a little bit as we get towards the halfway stage in this race. Gianni Vecchio not particularly pleased about the way MSI Esports went through. Then again, Johan Hart wasn't particularly pleased with him earlier on. Hart was arguing that since Redline have a penalty, they should probably just be a bit calmer and let them through a little bit. Obviously, Redline wouldn't have done that anyway. But either way, these are the arguments that drivers have throughout a race. Generally, the main thing to report, Arjuna, is everybody's losing their rag a little bit.
So maybe what I'm hearing then is we need a safety car to calm everyone down so we can get them even more wound up. On board with Davidson in the Pure Sims GTD entry, and we mentioned this earlier. It's not just Romain Grosjean that's got an esports team in this event. It's not just David Brabham that sees the McLaren MP4 adorned in the green and gold. But Ash Sutton, the multi-time British touring car champion, will be watching on and cheering not just in GTD, but of course in touring car as well, as Arnaud's competition gets completely bullied off the road at turn 5. And you can see what Davidson thought of that one.
Yeah, that's freebie a bit of traffic that he doesn't have to deal with. Like you said, Ash Sutton. Yeah, well, there's a lot of real racing drivers and whatnot that push the sim racing. And it'll become more and more, especially with the younger audience moving forward in the world of motorsport. There, as they move forward, they'll want to push their own brand forward. Ash Sutton being one of those. Remember when he came into British touring cars and seeing him race towards the front and then taking his first championship back in 2017. Missed up the opportunity of taking a championship this year after some issues. And very brave racing. I was there at Brands Hatch when he unfortunately didn't win. Tom Ingram taking that one. Yeah, no, I get to go around and watch all this stuff. I don't meet any of the drivers. I'm terrified of them.
Shame on you. Here we go. Down the hill once more.
Not?
Gianni Vecchio is still not come down pit lane, is he? Sorry, I'm just trying to figure out when he's going to have to come and serve that penalty, because he should have had to serve it already, based on what I saw from when Race Control posted it. So maybe there's more going on behind the scenes. We'll see if we can get Race Control to give us an update on that. Let's ride around for a lap here at the Michelin Raceway Road Atlanta with this Lamborghini Huracan Evo. Davidson recognizes that down through the S's, you can't do much. The touring cars will run their line. It's about this, the exit of turn 5, where you hug to the inside, you jump onto the loud pedal, and you run down into the cambered in turn 6, where you'll try and carry in a little bit more speed, but the traffic just not working out for the Pearsons number 16. Davidson sets it up beautifully out of turn 6, and then the crucial turn 7, tighter than 90 degrees, get on the power, maximize the track, and now breathe for a moment, because this is the only opportunity you'll get to do so. Grab a drink of water, talk to your teammates, talk about strategy, and then get steeled to do it all over again here in Brazelton, Georgia. Little did Dr. Don Panos know the legacy he'd leave behind with this track. There is nothing petit about Petit Le Mans. Brake just before the 100, down through the chicane, maximize the track on both sides of the curb, and then sweep your way up and under the Fox Factory Bridge, dive down 100 feet of elevation, and finish lap here through the final corner with the Michelin building on your left at this Michelin Raceway Road Atlanta. It really is a little bit of a roller coaster. I'm disappointed that, Lewis, it's only your 3rd favorite track in the world.
Well, I mean, that's what happens when you can't number your corners properly. So, boom. There's that. To be fair, the 2 circuits that are ahead of it on my list don't have numbers. So,
corner names are always superior. We've been having this discussion as long as you don't change them. Here's Door Esports still battling with Arnaud's competition in their fire-breathing McLaren. You've got the stealth black BMW of Kova behind you, of course, at the 10-second penalty at the start of the race for misregistration, trying to fight back from that one. Every point, every place pays points, so you're fighting for valuable championship points in a short 4-round championship that will be done before we reach the end of November. Arnaud in front of Door, Kova not able to get the move done on that Lamborghini, and they dive down through the S's once more. This the battle for 15th on back.
And it's kind of one of those things. Yeah, it's amazing to see that no matter what position it is, lead, well, actually, no, for the lead, there's not been a battle today because Alejandro Sanchez said, see you, lads. But whether it's for the podium, whether it's in GTD, whether it's in touring cars or whatever position it's for, it's ruthless. It's absolutely ruthless. We've seen some brilliant moves up and down the order. Absolutely loving it as we pass the halfway point of this race. Like I say, our large competition. Got Durr in there, got Kova, got the AMG Williams, of course, making its way back up the order. They've had a bit of a frustrating day after starting so far up and then moving their way back down. But now they're starting to work their way through some of this field.
I like the inter-team communication that I'm seeing, not even just in the voice, the radios effectively between the crew members, but even just in the text chats. Kevin Ellis Jr. has just finished his warm-up, is ready in the session, and if a safety car comes out, Apex already knows they're throwing Kevin into the end of the race in that number 98 car that continues to lead with the margin 21 seconds. Remember, we've seen split strategy calls. It will equalize. Some teams yet to do the driver change. The likes of Dorr have already got Moritz Lohner out and Mikhail Rochelle back in, or rather into that car, potentially to go down to the end. We'll see exactly how it will all play out here. We have also noticed something, Lewis. We've seen cloud cover play a big factor in what the track temperatures have been doing, because it's gone up a little bit more now to 38 degrees Celsius.
It's one thing to kind of note. I mean, it happens more so in qualifying where you've got to time it right with the cloud coverage and whatever. That cloud coverage comes over and it does drop the track temperature very quickly, and it doesn't even need to cover it for that long to drop it for 3 or 4 degrees. It might only drop it for a couple of laps, but it's enough to. Even that period, it's enough to think, okay, I can use this to look after the tyres. I can maybe use this to attack for some more speed. Here comes Kova then straight down the inside of Dur Esports. There's the position picked up at the moment from who was behind the wheel of the Kova car at the moment? It is Matty Siepler now down the inside of Mikhail Raikl down the inside after a driver swaps on the previous stint.
Here comes now the Daniel Pastor wheeled Mercedes-AMG Williams Esports car that will fly down the inside, and Lamborghini not fighting too much. The Dorr Esports guys were talking about how they weren't so confident with how the BOP affected their car, and it does seem to be playing out that the Lamborghini, at least for the time being, seems to struggle a little bit more, although net when you figure out those that have done driver changes so far, Dorr still inside of the top 7, so can never count them out.
Oh, no, okay.
Yeah, I was going to say, was there a moment there for the Impulse Racing 122 that's still trying to hunt down Florian Lebigra, as that is basically the only fights really going on in the touring car category, the fight for 3rd. There is Apex Racing, which has Gael Valero behind the wheel trying to battle with Brandon Hawking for 6th, but it's that phase of an endurance race, Lewis, where it's all settled down.
Yeah, I mean, I will say, when I went, I genuinely thought the RHG had an issue, but they were just driving their normal lines. It's just it's so much slower. Matty Siepler then down the inside of the Arnage competition car, trying to find his way past David Toth. Not able to do so right now. Got an RHG TC car, touring car rather, to navigate. And it was, like I say, pretty close call there. And Arnage competition still able to hang on to the spot. David Toth doing what he can to hang on from Matty Siepler, from Daniel Pastor, and from Michael Raikl as well, who's also in that train. They are over a minute off the race lead, though. That's crazy.
I mean, it just speaks to the domination of Alejandro Sanchez, regardless of strategy. Flying in this first stint of the race. Absolutely flying. Let's head back down to our pit lane roving reporter, where Ewan O'Leary is tracking what the number 55 Mercedes-AMG Williams Esports team is telling Daniel Pastor.
Yeah, I was just listening to them a couple of moments ago when they were really stuck behind those 3 cars in front of them. Daniel Pastor was a bit frustrated, really, saying that he was so much quicker than the rest of them, but just couldn't find a way through. Lewis Nazar losing patience a little bit and just telling his driver to send it, to be honest. So there's not much strategy going on there. There certainly is, though, in Team 75 by SimRC, a lot further up from this, but their no-tyre strategy is really starting to come into play for them. The Porsche's light on its feet and its tyre conservation is really becoming an advantage for that team now. It's obviously very strong in its tyres. They took no tyres at the first pit stops, and they're holding out really, really well as a result. So a great drive currently for the number 75 team, playing to the strengths of that Porsche.
I'm a little disappointed. We've had this great insight from Ewan O'Leary, but I haven't had the opportunity to say 2 seconds, Ewan, just yet. We will get that chance. I have no doubt about that. On board with Daniel Pastor. I mentioned at the start, Pastor sharing the car with Luis Nazar, former teammates at Urano Esports, then moved over to Williams together and have been very much at the forefront of the GT3/GTD program for Williams. And let's be real here, Lewis. Williams is so invested in esports, it is not just their own little spin-off now. Williams Esports accompanies the real team basically everywhere they go as Kova down the inside will get past Arnage.
Yeah, I've seen a lot of their their tweets and whatnot, and how much they've been pushing, how much they've sent a lot of their drivers around the world to come and have a look at the world of motorsport. I remember when Williams Esports first jumped into sim racing. It was back in 2018. It was at the first event they did, and it was not a good one. We lapped them with me behind the wheel. Like, that's not good. That shouldn't happen. Now, whoa, no way am I ever doing that again. They are such a well-oiled machine in the world of sim racing. You can see it there as Daniel Pastor gets past Davidoff. They're always, as near as makes no difference at the front. We saw it in the IMSA Esports Racing League, of course, earlier on in the week. How much they've moved forward in the world of sim racing. They're always there or thereabouts, and they've got some proper up-and-coming talent. We're seeing it every single time we go racing.
I want to just point something out or bring something up which I was kind of nervous about today, Lewis. We know what some of these drivers can be like in endurance racing. There's a reason why the prototype class is not Le Mans prototype here in iRacing. It is the Let Me Pass class.
Yeah, too right.
Yeah, the faster class has a reputation for demanding its own way, if you will. Overall, still with an hour and 12 minutes to go.
Oh, I think you're going to say.
I just think overall, we have, yes, it's crazy because there's such a big speed differential, but it's been about as good as one could expect for the first time that these drivers in a competitive situation have had to experience what this traffic combination will be like.
I mean, this is not an easy track when it comes to lap traffic at all. It's very, very tight. I mean, like I said, this part of the section, no worries. Like, we don't see too many issues down here as Daniel Pastor tries to find the way past Matti Siepela. But around this area circuit, not a problem up towards turn 1. And then you've got a few corners where you've got to be really, really patient and really careful. It's not easy. GTD and the touring cars separate by a lot over the laps. That time.
Back down to pit lane and Ewan O'Leary because we continue watching this battle, and the Arnage competition car Ewan has been given the opposite instructions to what the Mercedes Williams driver was just told.
Yeah, absolutely. Lorenzo Bonda also doing a lot of work behind the scenes. He was listening into Arnage there, yeah, he was instructed basically to just let the 55 go. I think that's the sensible choice, really. Was just looking at some pit stop times, actually, and the 55 Williams Mercedes had one of the longest stops or longest times down on pit lane of anybody in the field, and that includes those who have had long damage repairs today. So that sort of explains why they are so quick and they are so far down the order, all at the same time. But yeah, all very sensible at Arnage at the moment, and definitely the right call from them there as well.
Great to have Ewan O'Leary assisted by Lorenzo Bonda down on pit lane. First time we've tried anything like this, and I got to say it's a success. Let us know what you think. And on social media, on the broadcast chats, just let us know who you're cheering for, where you're cheering from, what you're looking forward to for the future of IMSA Esports. My name is Arjuna Kangipati, of course, in the RaceSpot TV commentary booth alongside with Lewis McLeod, Leary, Lorenzo Bonda, pit lane, and Hugo Luis by himself behind the scenes, working like a madman to make us look good and, let's be real, us sound smart as well. Lewis, I did see a comment from a good friend of yours, Dennis Lind, when we were talking about your potential to be a race engineer. He thinks you've got potential. However, we always say never trust a commentator's math. He'll go even further. He doesn't want to even give you a calculator.
Oh, so I have to do it all in my head?
Yes.
I mean, I love Dennis a lot, but no. I'm not very good at mental maths. I like my spreadsheets. Thank you very much. I don't know if you've seen any of my point spreadsheets and whatnot, but I love a good spreadsheet. It's just seeing all the data and stuff there. I mean, from that side of view, that's more of an engineering thing, but it's more about stats and numbers rather than actually important things.
We've seen the big book of BS that you brought out to the Virtual Le Mans series. On board with Chris Shorter, the South African. You can see how dark he likes his sim racing room. See the widescreen, ultra-wide triple screens that are wrapped around him. It's just enclosing him in this racing environment. Still hunting down Florian Labigra. This is the closest battle, by the way, in touring car. Apex have gotten past the CrowdStrike racing car in the battle for 6 and are starting to pull away, and there are some big separations. Don't rule out, though, for the Honda Racing HPD 193 and for the Mirror Esports 107. If we get a safety car, we have pass-arounds just like in the real world. So if you're a lap down, you're not out of the equation by any means, and we still have 17 minutes to go. bringing up the safety car. We haven't had to talk about it too much yet because we just haven't had one, Lewis, but as Jamie Moon and Reina Talvar battle for second spot in the GTD class, we also mirror not just the safety car wave around process, but the shortened safety car period as well. So if we get a safety car in the final 30 minutes, it's all bets are off because any expectations about how things would work are out the window.
Yeah, it's like I say, I mean, at this point, as we see Ev dive straight down the inside, wow, that is a proper send from Shorter. He does get down the inside of Labriga, but Labriga is going to hang on. That was a proper send. I did not think that was going to happen from Impulse. I thought he was going to miss the corner straight away. Got Mirror Esports lap down directly behind them, but super stuff. A little bit of the curb usage as well from the R8G man of Labriga, but Shorter to the outside into that first corner. Going to try and dive it in, going to try and leave it around the outside, but might get squeezed off. Touring cars going around the side-by-side through T1's not normally the best idea. They don't tend to have the grip to be able to do it.
Again, they'll fight Mirror Esports in the popcorn seat. Chris Shorter will get it done on the run to the S's. If anyone needs an explanation for why touring cars are so great, you don't need 50 of them. You just need 2 similarly placed, and they will put on a show. Now, I have no doubt these 2 will fight to the end. However, I think these 2, Lewis, are 2 drivers who owe us a driver change. So we will see their teammates jump in. As Reina Talvar has dropped to 4th, Johan Hart is back on the podium.
Yeah, I'm not sure how Johan Hart's done it, if I'm perfectly honest. I mean, just outside of just ridiculous speed. Could we see it back as being an Apex Racing Team 1 and 2? Johan Hart is putting the case over the team to be like, yeah, come on. Although I would feel bad, again, teammates-wise, I always say this kind of stuff. When your teammates with a driver like that, of course, it's Jamie Fluke alongside, who's plenty fast enough. But still, Johan Hart, you've done a great stint. Jamie Fluke jumps in and thinks, let's not mess this up. let's not bin this, like trying to get past some of the touring cars. It's more pressure, yeah.
Here's the move. Reina Talvar not even fighting. Phil Denez will jump into that BMW M4 GT3, the 96, to round out this race. So, there's 2 things which are playing a factor in making this so different from an iRacing special event. One, yes, live race control safety cars. It's something we can't have. We had 16,000 people for the 2022 iRacing Daytona 24. Logistically, I think people need to understand just how big an effort it would be to have race control and safety cars across all the splits. So that's one big element. But I think this drive time regulation as well, Lewis, when you factor in how the safety cars will interfere with the drive time, is really opening up some questions for, okay, how much am I going to drive? Because maybe all I have to do is 45 minutes and get out as soon as possible.
It's like I say, to be fair, at that point in the race, that would be where be going a little bit longer on the strategy. Something might actually bite you just a touch with, if the safety car comes out, how do you deal with the driver time, stint timer and whatnot. The thing is, with it being 2 hours and 40 minutes, either side of the minimum and maximum driver times, you are going to be pretty much cutting it fine. With it being an hour and 55 maximum at a 45-minute minimum, you are going to be cutting it fine, as we've got a switch here for second. There's Johan Hart.
It's
He's
familiar.
Loving it.
Earlier this morning, or at least for me it was this morning, earlier this afternoon for those of you around the world, BMW Sim GT Cup rounded its season off at the Suzuka International Circuit. It was an Apex Racing Team 1 and 2. It feels familiar. Of course, they have swapped over their BMW M4s for this Porsche 911 GT3R. There's a reason why they won dominantly 8 days ago for the 2022 iRacing Petit Le Mans, and now I have no doubt that without a safety car, it's going to be impossible to wrestle this 1 and 2 away from the Apex Racing guys.
And they've got used to this Porsche quite a bit, to be perfectly honest. Like you said, we don't have any of that, any of those Porsche commanders. Yeah, again, disappointed, whatever. But Apex Racing, like I said, you said earlier, they're flying the flag for Porsche, and they're doing an absolutely incredible job. I will say, Road Atlanta does lean itself, I said earlier in the broadcast, does lean itself quite a lot to these Porsches, but they're getting the most out of them. Now there's a little bit of contact there between BS Competition and Impulse, I believe, coming out of 7.
Chris Shorter was very much just pushed wide. There's no 2 cents about it. There was nothing he could do in that situation. Remember, front-wheel drive are these touring cars, so when you're trying to get on the power, you need to already be turned and pointed where you want to go, and so I think Race Control will take a look at that, and potentially there is the long hand of race control coming down to this. Head down to pit lane, and let's head down to Ewan O'Leary, who was listening in with Impulse and listening to the South African Chris Shorter.
Yeah, once again, unbelievably frustrated about that incident there. He was mentioning and cursing the fact that every time they seem to get to third place, an incident happens and they drop back to fourth again. He was complaining about the fact he just wasn't given any room on the exit of that corner, complaining that he can't just disappear on the exit of these corners. Yeah, unfortunately, they're back to fourth place, but his teammate very much reassuring him that there's still a long way to go.
There is still a very long way to go. Touring cars, I've been talking about how clean it is, but by the same token, they have very much been the pins in the bowling alley, if you will, with the GT3 cars flying past them. It's just one of those situations where we're putting two classes together that typically would not usually run together, and this is a track that at the best of times is a difficult multi-class endeavor as we track not just the battle for 20th, but up the road it's Door Esports and BMW BS competition. I believe all of these teams and drivers have already done their driver swap, so these are drivers into the end.
Yeah, quite a lot of these teams have already switched them out. There are a couple in here that haven't. I think Race Clutch is still, and Eric Andre, I believe, started the car. There's a couple in here that the Race Clutch car that we're looking at right now. I think it's an Eric Andre who started, still an Eric Andre behind the wheel. So there are a couple, fair enough, but for the most part, yes, they have all switched. I will say, by the way, going back to the point on the touring cars versus GTD, we've talked about it a few times, fair enough. But it is one of those things that have discussed a few times on broadcasts and whatnot. With if you were doing an endurance race, would you want to be in the lead category, or would you rather be in second category or third category? 110%. It's not ego. I mean, it kind of is, but also I'm so good, obviously. But no, I would rather be in the lead category every single day of the week. Now, I would rather drive a touring car than a GT3. Do love myself a little bit of touring car action, but I'd always take the GTDs over it because you're in control. You're in control of your own destiny. You're the one that decides when you go for the move. You're the one that has to do it safely. When you're in a touring car, like you said before, coming into turn 7, you could have dialed down the inside. Right, I'm off the road then. Nice. That was a well-oiled machine. Well-deserved loss of the podium or of second or whatever. Like, yeah, it's frustrating.
And I wonder how close some of these teams and drivers will push it in terms of the fuel strategies as well, because it seems to be the consensus that there is less of a likelihood of getting a safety car the longer that we run in this race, which tracks, because not only are we losing cars, but there's less to fight for as there's a bit of contact with BMW BS competition as they work past your touring car race leader. CrowdStrike takes advantage, Door loses out as well. But these are those moments where midway through the race, you start to tense up.
Yeah, well, I mean, at this point, especially if you've been in the car for approaching an hour and 40 minutes, of course, you're approaching your final pit stop and all that, but you're feeling confident, you're feeling G'd up, you're feeling like, I'm coming into the pit lane quite soon, I want to make some moves, I want to make some progress, I want to get after this race just a little bit. And sometimes that's the wrong call, because like you say, you really do get a little too aggressive in traffic, you do push the boat out a little bit too far. And sometimes, yeah, you can trip up over them a little bit. I was genuinely surprised that Eric Andre fired it straight through as well with T3. Like, he's feeling pretty confident to try and keep up with this train.
So, don't forget, we will crown a Michelin Driver of the Day at the end of this. Let us know in the chat who you're thinking right now, with still 60 minutes to go, is a candidate, and you'll be able to continue letting us know over the course of the day as well. But we are reaching that magic number. It is 60 minutes left on the clock. Drivers can pit from here and can make it to the end. It is all about this final push to the end in this first round of the 2022 IMSA Esports Michelin Global Championship, powered by VCO. Let's run you down through the order for one final time. We'll give you an hourly update, and in GTD it continues to be domination from the Apex Racing team. We do watch a battle with Gianni Vecchio, who is on the cusp of getting a penalty from race control for abusing track limits, fight side by side with the Mercedes-AMG Urano number 90 of Lee Kakita, who slides his way past and chops the nose off as well. But Apex Racing team leading 1 and 2. Johan Haas still chased down by Rainer Talvar and the BS Plus Turner number 96, with 2 Porsches and a BMW on the podium as it runs right now. with split calls on strategy, not just with fuels and tires, but also when it came to driver calls. It is Team 75 Bernard by SimRC, MSI Esports, Mercedes-AMG Urano, Team Redline, Williams, Pure Sims, and then the Urano Esports Data Group car that complete the top 10, but we're expecting plenty of shakeups with one final round of pit stops still left to play. Lewis, run us down through the touring cars.
Yeah, indeed, SimRC hanging on to the race lead, trying to do something slightly different on strategy. Not really 100% sure as to how it's going to work out, but they are leading. We know earlier on they were in a tight battle with R8G, who presently runs second and third within the touring car category. So Martin van Loozenord's trying to apply the pressure, setting some decent times, but at the moment it really is Corentin Guinez in control. Lost about a second on the previous lap, so we'll see how that one continues. Chris Shorter just lost out the podium spot in the fairly recent pass to Florian Lebigra after a bit of an issue with the BS competition car coming into turn 7. So he drops down to 4th. R8G up into 3rd position, Impulse down to 4th. Arnage competition in 5th before we get to Apex, CrowdStrike, Corsim Racing, and the Semper Racing car. Just seen there might have been, oh, there we go, it's into the pit lane for Martin van Loozenord.
Yep, and he is also followed in by Gianni Vecchio, who, like I said, is on his last warning by race control. So even though Vecchio will get out and be replaced by Josh Thompson, who is the replacement driver for Luke Bennett today, all teams had to nominate 2 full season drivers and get 2 Joker replacements as well. Redline already using one of their 2 as the pit stop window opens. We don't expect these Porsches to come in anytime soon. Of course, the Apex Racing team were able to stretch it the longest of them all. This is just about pushing as Alejandro Sanchez does what is his fastest lap of the race with a 1:17.002. It is also the fastest lap of the race. And I mean, Lewis, if the Michelin tires that he's been running have degraded any bit, we're not seeing that in terms of lap time.
No, like I say, well in control. I mean, this is the kind of circuit. There are some circuits where you can't really look after the tyres that much, right? This is not one of them. You can. It's brutal on the tyres, but the difference that you as the driver can make on the rubber, you know, how much it's degrading. You know, that's the big deal. We've got 2 of the Monaco Esports cars switching over positions between the pair of them. Now, are they going to actually race their way down into the chicane at turn 10? Kind of, to be fair.
Monaco Esports, obviously an esports organization that has existed for a while, but picked up a number of drivers earlier this summer and then launched their esports team. Decent results in our big events here on iRacing. Saw a car down to pit lane as Alexander Davidson peeled off in. Here comes the race leader. It will be Alejandro Sanchez out and Kevin Ellis Jr. in. Ellis Jr. won this morning in the BMW Sim GT Cup to what we think become the first driver to win 3 races in a row in BMW Esports. Now the pressure is on because all he's got to do here, Lewis, is not crash.
And was it not mess up the pit stop, which I'm pretty sure he did in the first race that he did with Apex, right at the.
That was Alejandro Sanchez, yes.
Oh, it was, yeah. So fair enough. Like, don't mess it up and whatnot with Alejandro Sanchez in the pit stop, and then, like I say, hand it over to your teammate to get after this race. Kevin Ellis Jr., like I say, it's going to have a fair amount of pressure on his shoulders, but let's be real. All of the Apex racing teams, they can deal with it.
4 tires. This is what we expected. If you change driver, you give them fresh Michelin rubber to run to the end of the race. And that is what Kevin Ellis Jr. will enjoy in that number 98 as there he goes up on the jacks. Slightly different to the real world in the IMSA WeatherTech Sports Car Championship when you can do fuel and tires at the same time. Unfortunately, this time it is for the drivers separated, and it does add a little bit more of an element to strategy. So it leaves Johan Harth, Reino Talvar, and Luca Kita for Apex, BS Turner, and Mercedes Urano. 1, 2, and 3 for the time being. As we get the pit stop time for Kevin Ellis Jr. It's only 58 seconds. It's slightly shorter than what he would need because, of course, he is pitted beyond the top of the hour and emerges 10th on track, but in control of this race.
The thing is, when you're in control, you can drop it. Genuinely, you can get too comfortable. Not trying to say that's what Apex is going to do, but in a race, the amount of risk that you're dealing with every single lap, whilst the 97 comes down to the pit lane and relinquishes the race lead over to BS Turner, it's so easy, especially with the driver change. They're out of the rhythm. They're not quite 100%. They've been watching it, fair enough, and they're all very talented, but they've not been behind the wheel. They've not been learning bit by bit.
I forgot to bring this up earlier, but I'm glad that we get to do this now with more and more driver swaps going on. You remember you said earlier how it feels weird talking about MSI and not being able to say the name Alejandro Sanchez. Yeah, so the new driver behind the wheel, Alejandro Rui Sanchez.
Oh, yes, I did see, because it was in the, I was like, that's not Alejandro, but it says Alejandro. What?
Yeah.
Have you mistyped it or something? Oh no, it's a different guy.
The funniest thing was I had done the edit for the driver interview video, sent it over for approval, and Hugo, our producer, was taking a look at it and says, you forgot to put a space between Rui and Sanchez.
Yeah.
And I had to explain to him, no, that's his name. I checked a couple of times.
Different. I mean, they really are attached to Alejandro Sanchez and the IMSA Esports Cup. They want him back so much that they've gone, what are your qualifications? Yeah, that'll do.
Okay, your name had Alejandro Sanchez somewhere in there, even if it's spelled differently. Okay, fine. Let's do that. Jamie Fluke taking over from Johan Hart, one of the nicest people in all of sim racing, but also one of the most competitive. What will he be able to do in the number 97 Apex Racing Team car? There he is, working past the CrowdStrike Hyundai down through the S's as he gets the Michelin rubber back up to temperature and into the window where he needs to be. Head back down to pit lane for a moment because Jamie Fluke came second in the BMW Sim GT Cup, and it's fair to say Ewan O'Leary's preparation for this race was compromised as a result.
Well, yeah, this is the argument we were having a little bit earlier on with the BMW Sim GT Cup happening earlier this afternoon in Europe, and this IMSA race happening tonight. Jamie Fluke obviously had to do that BMW race. He needed some points to get to BMW Sim Live, so he needed to do that race, so he couldn't have put as much effort into practicing for this as Johan Hart has done. But luckily for him, Johan Hart has done an incredible job in that first stint. When he got into second place for that final time towards the end of that stint, he had to check with Jamie Fluke just where they'd come from in that race. He'd forgotten that they'd started in P20, to be quite honest, and obviously he was very, very pleased that they managed to make so much progress. So they're very pleased at the moment. And one thing about touring cars as well, RHG in the 118, not the 118, their other car, the other RHG car, they did take front tyres at their most recent pit stop. Sim RC will be in rather soon.
Oh, we may have
BS Turner.
Yes. It's not just BS Turner, but I think maybe the Aspar race. Oh, and that's more drama. So there's been two incidents. Sorry, Lewis was looking where he was meant to be looking. I was looking somewhere else, and he picked up on the exit of turn 3. BS Turner having a moment there with, I believe, the Mirror Esports Hyundai. Poor Mirror Esports, man. What a way.
Yeah.
It doesn't get much worse than this to kick off a championship.
Also, sorry to literally just blast over you and sorry, mate.
We didn't even say 2 seconds there. I feel bad. It was my opportunity.
Pit lane. We take the priority. None of that rubbish. Yeah, like I say, a bit of a moment there. Only kind of caught the top end of it. We'll see it on replay here. Ooh, that is way too aggressive from BS Turner. I've got to say it. That was too much.
I'm pretty sure Race Control's finger was hovering over the safety car button for that one. And not just for that. If we can get a look at what happened to the Aspar Ferrari, there would have been two little things that they would have been worried about. Now, Rainer Talvar would have lost, probably 20 seconds minimum?
I don't know.
Well, let's see if we can go directly straight back to the pit road, and let's see if Ewan O'Leary has a damage report, because that was a not insignificant bit of contact.
No, absolutely. Rainer Talvar was saying as he was making his way around the back half of the circuit, although he hadn't really been on a fully length straight yet to test the suspension, he said it felt fine. Not great, but it felt fine at least. So not a disaster for them. He was just making the comment there that he really did think he had the gap at the top of the hill there to make that move, but evidently did not. I think in that comment, although he didn't say it, I think accepting maybe a little bit of responsibility for that one. Just a bit of a misjudgment, really, rather than any malice in that.
So 50 minutes to go. Remember, with 30 minutes left on the clock, we immediately enter a phase of the race where we only use the shortened yellow, where pit lane is never opened. Pass-throughs become possible, but more difficult. my oh my, that is a weird one, and it's lucky no one else was coming, because that would have been a safety car.
That's an odd spot to have a, like, you don't normally see a car.
Left side's in the grass, I'm almost 100% sure.
It's got to be. It's got to be. Like I say, you don't typically see too many cars out there, unless it's on a rolling start and everyone's completely missed the queue. Seen that before?
Touring cars, this is their window to make their final stop, so Harrison is already in pit lane in the 176. Labigra will go a lap longer, but you can see SimRC go up on the jacks, will drop and continue taking on, I would assume, fuel at this point, with Harrison staying in to run to the end of this race. And I said it at the start, Lewis, they were my favorites, but I still maintain, given some of the comments from drivers about BOP, it's going to be difficult for the rest of the season to discount R8G, because whatever they've done with the Honda, it clearly is quick.
Which I'm shocked. I'm shocked by. I am absolutely shocked by the Hondas being that far. I've driven the Elantra around Road Atlanta, which rhymes really nicely, by the way. Not intentional.
Lewis,
Poet didn't even know it.
Yeah, I was going to say, book of poetry coming soon.
It drives really, really nicely around here. I haven't really taken too. I've driven a little bit of the Civic, but not too much. It almost is like a totally different class.
Quick point as well on drive time that Ewan has just pointed out to us, Lewis, but with 45 minutes being the minimum drive time, you basically have to come in within the next couple of laps, if you haven't swapped already, to give yourself a buffer time, because it's not calculated from the time you get in to the time you get out. It's just calculated based on your lap times.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Right, yeah, you want to give yourself a little buffer on that one. But like I say, with these kind of ones, when it comes to minimum, maximum driver times, do not take the mick. Just like run your strategy, fair enough, but do not take it to the wire trying to get it timed to the exact minute. I've seen that time and time again, and it's kind of like we were in the commentary booth, watched it, being like, no, he's like 30 seconds short, and it's like, yeah, he never got the minimum time, and it's like, yeah, that is a slam dunk penalty. The numbers don't lie. So, you know, doing a 30-second slower lap to try and be like, yeah, no, I did the extra 30.
It's especially pertinent to point when given that the drive time regulations for the IMSA WeatherTech Sports Car Championship got a bit of a rework just this past week, courtesy of some shenanigans earlier this year, we'll put it that way. So with 47 minutes to go, we are in that phase of the race where you've either made your final cycle of pit stops or you've already done the driver change. All you need to do is come in once again to top off on fuel to get to the checkered flag. This series, of course, is not possible without the support of longtime partners of IMSA Michelin, who helped to make the $25,000 prize pool a possibility. We chatted earlier with Tom Sullivan. Let's chat with him once more. We're joined once again by Tom Sullivan, the motorsports marketing manager at Michelin USA, which is one of the coolest job titles you can have. But we talked earlier about IMSA and Michelin, but now this is about moving forward to IMSA Esports. But Michelin has been part of the sim racing world for quite a while. Can you tell us more about Michelin's involvement in the sim racing community?
Yeah, absolutely. Over the last 5 to 10 years, I think Michelin's development within the world of simulation racing has grown, not only with sport global championships like we see today, but also with more of the gaming side of things. So we've made some deals with groups like Gran Turismo, where we're actually infusing some of the tire technology into gameplay, and that's where I think we're all headed. I mean, the lines between real motorsports racing on the track and simulation racing is so blurred now by the technology developments, that what we want to make sure that we do is that we have the tire considerations play a big part in the role of the success of those that are simulation racing. So whether it be because of tire degradation or tire performance or air pressure in the tires, that should play a real part in the outcome of the series.
In terms as well of introducing consumers to the Michelin brand, there isn't, I think, more distinctive a mascot in motorsports than the Michelin Man. Just how beneficial it is for Michelin as a company to be on site at these events week in and week out.
Oh, it's tremendous. If you go to any of our WEC races globally or IMSA races here in North America, Michelin Man is clearly the most popular person out there, character out there. Fans from all ages want to come and shake hands, do fist bumps, get a picture with Michelin Man. And that branding has really benefited us for well over 100 years, and it's very unique in the space that we work in. So works very well for us. We're very, very proud of the manner.
And the Michelin Man, of course, is running on all our cars in the IMSA Esports Michelin Global Championship. Thank you so much for your time, Tom. Let's head back to the action at the Michelin Raceway Road Atlanta. Always good to talk about Michelin and their involvement in motorsports, and we will talk more with the team at Michelin over the course of this championship. More and more pit stops getting underway as the drivers that have already completed their driver swap but have yet to take fuel make their way down onto pit lane. It includes the likes of the Mercedes-AMG Williams Esports car with Daniel Pastor behind the wheel of the 55. Kova's BMW with Matti Sipula there just behind them will roll in just a few moments' time. And what we're seeing crucially is there is damage on basically every one of the cars here today, Lewis.
And I can understand why, if I'm honest. It has been a chaotic day. 2 hours of the most frantic racing, to be fair, of the most frantic multi-class racing that you'll see. It's just been absolutely on the limit every single time. You're going to get a bump straight. This is a brutal track. It's somewhere where you can trip over other cars a fair few times, and like I said, we've seen it on a couple. Well, Kova, though, in the number 77, going to defend. This is 9th position, I believe, 8th position potentially, and they've got the Williams Esports Razor fresh out of a pit stop, going on the attack. Thomas Tattler going to lose out to Daniel Lafuente, who gets down the inside and takes over that 8th position.
You remember what we were doing last summer, Lewis?
What I was doing 15 minutes ago, mate.
True. I mean, that's fair for all things sim racing. But 2021, the VRS SCO Sprint Masters. I remember that very colored car with Daniel Lafuente behind the wheel being, and I mean this in the most positive way possible when I use this word, an absolute menace on race starts. We just got so accustomed to seeing plus 10, plus 12, plus 15, and he's being the second driver in this race, and I'm just wondering as we move forward through this championship if teams and drivers will figure out which role they are more suited to in this unique form of racing.
Yeah, I mean, like I say, the aggressive level that Lafuente had, it was brilliant. I was genuinely, every single time, you can't constantly gain 10 positions on a race start. I did see, by the way, that Arjuna was channeling his inner Dion Fiallo, and so I copied, and he's instantly gone back on it a touch. Obviously, moving the old headset down. I'm still in shock, if I'm perfectly honest. Here's Urano, though, trying to make their way past Kova, who seem to be struggling just a touch as we head down into the chicane once again. Vlad Kimichev trying to get past Thomas Tattler. I get the feeling the Kova car might be struggling a little bit because they did just essentially let him go.
Kova, one of those teams that has an interesting dynamic with which to play with. Two cars, but two different cars, and two different cars within the same class. Of course, they got the BMW, they have the Ferrari GT3 Evo as well. Just makes it a little bit more complicated when you're trying to develop setups and whatnot, because instead of being able to throw, if, for example, you had 4 drivers split across the same car but in 2 separate entries, 4 drivers at one car, now you've suddenly got half the resources and double the amount of work if you think about it that way.
I've never enjoyed the idea of taking multiple cars in essentially you can't really work together. Setup doesn't work. You can't just go, oh well, I've taken the BMW and I've dropped the rear wing by 2 and it grips beautifully, and you go as a Ferrari driver and think, cool. So what can I add to that? It's like I can do nothing about this. It doesn't assist me at all. I mean, the fuel numbers don't work. The strategy doesn't work. You've kind of got to treat it as 2 separate teams.
Thomas Tattler is having the longest of the weekend, Lewis. I know you've had a long one with your finishing up your real world season and the commentary you've done there, but Thomas Tattler had the Porsche Tag Heuer Esports Super Cup Contenders Series race yesterday, and that was at Watkins Glen, and the oval kind of configuration at Watkins Glen, so it was one of those sort of a races. This morning, Ewan and I got to commentate on this very same driver behind the wheel of a BMW M4 GT3, and now for the jumping into his 3rd different car in less than 24 hours, he's in this Ferrari at the Michelin Raceway Road Atlanta. And this shows why we sometimes say that sim racing is where motorsports are still adaptable. In an era of motorsports where specialization has become so important, here in the sim racing world, and courtesy of competitions like the VCO Esports Racing League, you must be adaptable as we see touring cars on pit lane.
Yeah, big time, all coming in for their last stop. But yeah, big time adaptability. And also you've got to accept, a lot of these drivers, this is where, like, obviously as commentators we complain about being like, oh my god, it was such a long weekend. And you're kind of like, yeah, well, the driver's done like 3 races. The thing is, you've got to practice a little bit beforehand. You've got to get up to speed, and then you've got to do the races. And these are intense. It is a sweat fest out there, and they are pushing it to the limit every single lap. I mean, yeah, I couldn't do that. Certainly nothing anywhere remotely close to this level, even if I was only doing 1. So, yeah, fair enough.
2 hours done, 40 minutes to go, will become 39 now. So it is this final portion of the race, and I think everyone has finished in pit lane. I don't think there is anyone that we expect to make a return trip other than potentially the 188 of Ollie Steinbraten, who's sharing the car with Martin van Lozenoord.
No, I think they might be done. They did pit at the first. They pitted very, very early on because Van Lozenoord had to get out. So I think they're good to go.
So they pit 12 laps ago because of the drive time.
Yeah. And obviously he needs to get Steinbraten into the car, who doesn't seem to have quite the pace of Martin van Lozenoord right now. Last lap time was a 31.6. That's 3 seconds slower than Kieran Harrison. No, I'm reading the wrong person. Never mind.
It is confusing.
I will do a 180 on that one. Thank you.
Yeah, no, I know what you're trying to do. Let's head down back to pit lane for a second, because let's check in with this top 3 in touring car. And you and O'Leary, you've been bouncing between the RHG camps and SimRC with the Hyundai 176, trying to make sure these 2 Hondas aren't able to catch with 38 minutes to play and an 18-second gap to spare.
Yeah, not so long ago there were discussions about how they might fight this out towards the end of the race down at SimRC, but as soon as those top 3 came in touring car just 1 lap ago, Kieran Harrison came out with, as you can see now, nearly 18 seconds worth of a lead, and so Corentin Quinez, his teammate, told him to take it easy. Obviously this is all relative terms. He's still pushing pretty hard. However, things very much in the control of SimRC right now. So yeah, for now they've got the advantage. RHG are going to do everything they can. Very difficult to do this though, with only 37 minutes to go.
2 seconds before we let you go then, Ewan. Let's talk quickly about Michelin Driver of the Day. From your vantage point down on pit lane, who's impressed you the most across both classes?
Oh, I've got absolutely no idea. I don't know if I've been looking at anyone for a long enough period of time singularly to know or not. I mean, the obvious choice in GT Daytona has to be Alejandro Sanchez with what he did in the first half of the race. But I mean, it's up for grabs, isn't it? I don't really know. And in touring car as well. Oh goodness, I've got no idea. To be honest, I couldn't tell you. But yeah, there's a number of honourable mentions to be made.
Ewan O'Leary has been adding so much to this broadcast along with Lorenzo Bonda. So excited we've been able to do this pit reporter concept for the very first time on RaceSpot, and at least in my slightly biased opinion, it has worked fantastically. So here's the way that it cycled out for Team 75. Short pit stop in the first cycle of the race got them second on the road, but it's now translated to 11th as they've just been passed by Aaron Vasquez, a late replacement Joker driver for that Monaco Esports 88, because someone you're very familiar with, Lewis, Alex Dunn, unfortunately, had to pull out of this round 1. He will be back in the car, hopefully, for the rest of the season.
Yeah, British Formula 4 champion. So excited to see him in this championship. But yeah, been a bit busy this weekend. He's not been in our car. When I saw that he wasn't doing it, I was like, is he coming along to it? Is he going to be at Donington?
He's in Italy, isn't he?
Yeah, I was like, no, he's not. He's not going to be at Donington. But no, obviously, such a talented driver, Sim, and in real, obviously, just wrapping up the British Formula 4 championship. By the way, he wrapped it up so early that he didn't even show up to the last round of the championship. That's how good he was in British Formula 4. And it's a challenge. It's a strong competition. Over 8 rounds, I think. Yeah, he cleared off into the distance. By the way, I'm a bit disappointed you didn't ask me about my driver of the day. So
well, we talked about it briefly before, but I just wanted to get Ewan's point of view before we headed into what I think is going to be a crazy 35 minutes. Because again, reminder: if we get a safety car, There's no pass-arounds likely to happen. We just go with what we've got, and Kevin Ellis Jr.'s gap will come down, but maybe not as much as the likes of Kita, Rui Sanchez, and Lafuente would want. And let's talk about Rui Sanchez for a moment, because we were kind of unsure what to expect from him, the new Sanchez on the block, if you will. He's holding that MSI Esports Porsche up in third, much higher. Remember, they started down in 15th. That car is there on strategy and on pace.
I've got to say, yeah, doing an absolutely spot-on job. The real question is, when do we get Alejandro Sanchez versus Alejandro Rui Sanchez? I mean, I couldn't keep up. Like, we'd have to revert to team names at that point. But then the MSI Sanchez, no, it's going to be very confusing. But I can't wait. These are battles that I think we'll see. I wasn't sure what to expect from Rui Sanchez. Kind of a few question marks. Not really a driver that we've seen too much from. Although maybe we have just seen him and then just assumed it was Alejandro Sanchez at various points, which I am concerned that might have been the case. But either way, doing an absolutely stunning job at the moment for MSI, up in third spot.
That's the RAG Hondas being split as the Williams Esports Razor Mercedes and the Apex Racing Porsche work through. Now remember, Jamie Fluke was up in second, or net second, I guess, just before his teammate pulled in to hand the car over to Fluke, but he's now fifth, which again, let's remember where they started about 90 minutes ago. I mean, just after the start of the race, when Harth, as well as the Mercedes-AMG Williams Esports car, had the moment at the chicane. It's been a fantastic fight back from the 97, but maybe they are using the Porsche speed quite well, because in terms of the top six, Lewis, it's Porsche, Mercedes, Porsche, Mercedes, Porsche, Mercedes.
Yeah, it is coming back a little bit Porsche, and that's why, by the way, that comeback drive, that is why Johan Harth would be my pick for driver of the day. That's why I completely disagree with Alejandro Sanchez. I was wagging my finger Ewan O'Leary's way, who clearly only has eyes for the commentary booth. That's why he didn't really know fully on the driver's side. I think in the touring cars, by the way, it's probably Martin van Loosnord. I think he's done such a super job. Obviously, teammate not quite in position. Kieran Harrison, who came in and is realistically the favourites, who's jumped back in from Corentin Gunes. Fair enough. But I think Martin van Loosnord's an absolute shock in a touring car, because he's just so fast in it, and he's not a touring car driver.
Let's watch some more highlights, because with 32.5 minutes left to go, it's been an electric 2 hours to kick off this 2022 IMSA Esports Michelin Global Championship. We ran you down the highlights for hour one. It's running down through the highlights of hour two, and while yes, it has settled down, albeit slightly, that is not to say that we have not seen plenty of things going on. First into turn three, moments with traffic as the SimRC touring car leader tried to navigate past. It was all about just staying out of harm's way as the Williams Esports Razor car fought its way back up into the top four. Then it was the recovery drive from Johan Harth that continued to excite and to delight. He was willing to throw lunges into the chicane. Unfortunately, Alexander Davidson in the Pure Sims Esports Lamborghini was willing to help him out. This time, though, Gianni Vecchio was not willing to help him out, and it was bravery, it was confidence. This was quintessential Johan Harth around the outside at turn A before they even got to the second part of the apex. It was done and dusted. Even a bit of a moment on power down could not stop the Frenchman from moving his way forward. And Vecchio continued to have to defend, because these two continued to fight as now MSI Esports got in on the party. Salva Talons with a monster first into the race, got past Vecchio, handed over to Rui Sanchez. That car now runs third on track. Meanwhile, for your touring cars, it's been a pedestrian run relatively for SimRC, with Kieran Harrison and Corentin Gunes proving why they were worthy favorites coming into this one. Many drivers still trying to fight their way back, not just Johan Harth, but the Williams Esports AMG entry with Daniel Pastor and Luis Nadja continue to fight as well. This might have been the most fun fight of the last hour, though, with Impulse and RAG. Third on touring car was up for grab. Back and forth they would go. It was the South African Chris Shorter was trying to do the work on Florian Lebigra, who took the car over from Valentin Mandenach, and look how much respect was given down through the final corner. A drag race to the line, if that was the final lap of the race. It did end in a little bit of contact, and then Impulse having further issues as well. As it runs right now, it is only 7 seconds that splits these two cars, with Impulse still on the charge, side by side, all the way from the chicane to the exit of the S's. They were the ones putting on a show. Not to say there weren't many more shows. Moritz Lohner's teammate Michael Rochelle got into the car and then had to figure out the hard way what it's like working with multi-class traffic as the BMW BS competition car. I think it's fair to say didn't just get physical, got overly physical. The CrowdStrike Mercedes would slip on past as well. Like we said, plenty of fighting. Then there was this moment. Optimistic from BS Turner, who were running third at the time, and they came to blows with a touring car machine. Hour 2 has been less eventful than Hour 1, but we still have plenty of fighting going on, and that's a move for CrowdStrike Racing, I believe. Excuse me, no, it's the Urano Mercedes to get up in front of the Apex Racing team car. Lewis McLeod with 30 minutes to go. There is still plenty of fighting all the way to the checkered flag.
It's always the case with Road Atlanta is that we're not done with drama. Certainly not. So I can't remember, but there was one of the Petit Le Mans, probably 2 years ago, the DPI category coming to this corner here into turn 6, where last lap of the race, penultimate lap of the race, there was contact, and it was just like, oh my god, it's just crazy. This track delivers the drama every single time. It delivers the racing. It's why it is an absolute favourite. And I will say, when it comes to good racing, tracks for good racing, this calendar might only be 4 tracks long, but every single one is quality on the racetrack.
I think I am most scared, though, about what's up 7 days from today when we head to the best coast of the USA into the WeatherTech Raceway Laguna Seca, because if this is tight and twisty, that ramps it up to a whole nother degree. Battle for third is the one to watch in GTD for the time being. It is Daniel Lafuente who's grabbed the final spot on the podium, jumping in front of Rui Sanchez in the MSI Esports number 14 Porsche 911. Closing as well, the likes of Vlad Kimichev for Urano's Data Groups 91. Of course, Jamie Fluke and Koba, Thomas Tattler, and even Phil Dinez for BS Turner all in the mix. We could have a 7-car fight for third. Traffic will play its part, and Ewan O'Leary, MSI, has been quite frustrated with how traffic's been working out for them in this battle for third.
Yeah, certainly Lorenzo Bonda was listening in to them and yeah, not getting the look through traffic, but I was listening in to Carl Jansen, who was instructing Daniel Lafuente in the Williams at number 5. They were just saying about how they just need that one good lap through traffic and they could get away from Vlad Kimichev to take the pressure off of themselves to try and put the pressure onto the MSI Esports car for third place. That's exactly what they did, and they didn't use much pressure indeed to do it either for that move into third. I think they were hoping they will be able to get away a little bit easier than that. However, they've got that third place and they're going to aim to defend it from here. It certainly seems as if that is their limit here in this race.
A bit further back, Phil Dinez has gotten past Jamie Fluke, who's had a big moment. Not exactly sure what's happened to him, but that second Apex Racing team car after the miraculous drive by Johan Harth that now sits, as you see on screen, behind the Ferrari, behind the BMW as well. We don't talk about them much, but when we do, all we're doing is singing their praises. As around goes Jaden Ladick, who is back behind the wheel of the 44 Monaco Esports Ferrari, will drop out of the top 15 potentially. But let's go to your race leaders for a moment, Lewis, because 28 seconds. It's not even close. And Kevin Ellis Jr. has done all he needs to do, which is hit a rhythm, maintain a tempo, and not put this car off the track.
Yeah, I mean, he's experienced enough that probably wouldn't have panicked too much, but it was the first 2 or 3 laps, potentially, where it's kind of like, right, these are the nervy ones. Get the 2 or 3 laps out, even if you have to lose a second a lap, just to get into the rhythm without taking any risks. Do those first 2 or 3 laps and then get into the rhythm. And Road Atlanta is a proper rhythm-based track. You know, it's not like someone like Monza where you just straight chicane, straight boring. Sorry, I've just insulted Italian people now.
Yeah, you're never getting hired by an Italian again. Here goes Dinez, the American from Monterey, to the inside. Thomas Tattler said he's had no experience in this car, had to buy it for the series. Maybe it's showing because Dinez, who has multiple wins in this car, will sweep around the outside, and as much as Tattler wants to defend, the inside's actually giving him a little bit more momentum. He'll be alongside and in front into turn 1. Jamie Fluke with a great view of the fun.
Yeah, you can see a little bit of almost like a shake of the head, it seemed there, from Jamie Fluke, who I did interview after the British Formula 4 Esports competition on Championship on Friday evening. And obviously my first question to him after doing have quite a good round, I was like, where are the track maps? Where's my track
Where are the track maps?
And do you know what he said? We'll work something out. I'm bored of hearing we'll work something out.
I know, he has said that quite a few times.
I am bored of hearing it. Let's hashtag where are my track maps at Apex Racing Team, at Jamie Fluke. Let's get
Alex Simpson.
Alex Simpson, yeah. At Lewis McGlaze. I'll throw me in there as well. I'll take those. But no, obviously we joke around. Get along with Jamie Fluke quite well. What a talent he is, and he will be very patient in this. As much as he can be a bit ruthless on track, he'll be waiting for his right opportunity. He's very experienced.
He is very experienced. Jamie Fluke, former software engineer. We interviewed him on the RaceSpot podcast at the end of 2020, and then let slip to us after we'd finished up that he would actually be leaving his career to go full-time sim racing, and what a journey it's been for him. One of that first initial contingent of full-time sim racers, and it's continued to grow for the Apex Racing Team. 2022 has very much been a breakout year for them here across the platforms as well, not just here on iRacing. They have very much started to branch out and show just how quick they well and truly can be. Still tracking that battle for third, by the way. Let's head back down to Ewan O'Leary again, because this really is where all of the action seems to be, both on track and in the pit lane as well. The 91 Urano Data Group car continues to search for a way past MSI and Alejandro Ruiz Sanchez, who does seem to be struggling with the grip as we come to the end of this race.
Yeah, absolutely. We're starting to see the strengths and weaknesses of the Porsche and the Mercedes come into play a little bit here as well, I think. But yeah, you're right. The Urano team very much looking for a way through on MSI. MSI don't get a great run out of the S's, and on the straight line as well. They're not fantastic, but looking for the move now, Urano.
And he'll throw it to the inside late on the brakes, and Ruiz Sanchez, I think, has decided that he'd rather get fourth than crash out of this race with 23 minutes to go. And again, we'll bring it up, and we'll bring it up over and over, Lewis. 4 rounds, no drop weeks, and a championship that's finished basically before it's even started. There is no room for mistakes. Consistency is the name of the game.
Yeah, if you've got it's such a hard thing to tell yourself, but in a race like this, if you've got an opportunity for fifth, take it. Don't risk it and try and grab fourth. Don't risk it and try and desperately defend to hold on. Let the race happen naturally. Don't irritate anyone. In a short championship, trust me, if you irritate someone, that will come back to bite you. Surely the championship finale, as much as we don't talk about it with sim racing, it's a glorified popularity contest. You know, I've seen it time and time again where people have made mistakes because they've irritated someone.
I could speak to this to myself. We were talking about iRating inflation. I forget when we were talking about this, but you know, with the last couple of years, an influx of drivers, just in general, iRatings have trended upwards. And I was halfway decent when I used to race. I'm not saying I was quick, but you know, I've competed in a top split special event. I've done my SEOs, I got my podiums. I'm not terrible. And I still remember one race I was streaming on Twitch. I was in the LMP2 class, and we had LMP1s and the GT-LM class, you know, on either side. And it was at Barcelona. And that final sector at Barcelona is just the worst when you've got 3 classes of traffic. And I distinctly remember Paddy Wolf, I think at the time it was Pure Racing Team, not Team Redline, did something that just wound me up. And so on my stream...
You killed him?
No, I wish I had done that, because that might have been less embarrassing than this.
Oh, no.
A stream of expletives, words that definitely cannot be repeated anywhere on the face of the earth. I basically said, if he does that again, I will kill him. I then got a message midway through the race from Paddy with a smiley face saying, why haven't I been killed yet?
Yeah. Yeah, no, I mean, the only time... I'm normally on track. I'm normally a clean good boy. I don't normally get in too much trouble with race controls. We can see what's happened with Aspar. Whoa, this is going to be a big... I'm actually scared looking at it. You're going way too fast with a damaged car, mate.
I'm more worried about this now. Oh, we'll be okay. We'll just about be okay, but I think that is definitely a car that is going to need to retire. And I still don't know how we've done this, but with 20 minutes to go, Lewis, I knock on wood, we have not actually had a single incident which justified the safety car, although this was close. This was pretty close.
Oh, I don't like the reverse gear being used there. I'd say that. I get it. 100% get it. But wow. Unfortunately, a very embarrassing moment there for the Aspar team, but you can see that car is crabbing like crazy.
Yes, no, that needs to go to the crab rave is what it needs to do. Let's head back down to pit lane if we can, because with Kimichev in front of Ruiz Sanchez, Ewan O'Leary, I'm hearing there was potentially monetary incentive for that Mercedes to get the move done.
Yeah, it's good to see that. Very good spirits actually at Urano at the moment, and I suppose they would be with one of their cars in second place and another fighting for a podium, because let's not forget it would be a double podium if Kimichev can just get up to that Williams Esports car and get through. He certainly believes that he can, but the pressure from MSI right now is not going to be helping him out particularly right now. The gap is 1.7 seconds between the two of them. Last lap time he was just 1/10 of a second quicker. The gap is coming down.
20 minutes to go in this inaugural round of the 2022 IMSA Esports Michelin Global Championship, powered by VCO. Both your class leaders, whether it's in GTD, whether it's in touring car, are in control of this phase of the race, but traffic is an inevitability, and you have to just ride this one out. On board with Rui Sanchez, we can confirm that this is a different Alejandro Sanchez just by looking at him, Lewis.
It does give it away. 10's 2 when you look at it and think, that doesn't look like Alejandro Sanchez. You're like, yeah, because it's not the same dude. He's trying to fight his way back, looking for 4th position again. Might well have lost out a little bit of time. Like I said before, the tyres potentially struggling a little bit more on the MSI Esports machine, but Vlad Kimichev's directly ahead. 4th position's directly ahead. And I said before about maybe not taking too many risks. Well, it's more so about the one closing in behind. You might see them poking in the mirror ever so slightly. Kova's on the charge, a little bit of lap traffic as well, slowing down Vlad Kimichev, then going very aggressively down the inside of the Pure Sims car, coming up the hill into T5.
And we've said it before, it's not a passing opportunity, and MSI might have been given an opportunity to look for it, but maybe not seeking it with that much impetus for the time being. Maybe they'll think about that in the final stages of the race. Kevin Ellis Jr. with a 1:16.859 punches in yet another fastest lap of the race. I mean, it just sums up the domination, because 1:16.859, there is literally no other car that has dipped into the 1:16 so far this race.
Again, it really does show their level of domination, a level of consistency, that Kevin Ellis Jr. has jumped into this car after a mega stint, absolutely mega stint from Alejandro Sanchez, the real one. He's just done really well to just get straight into the rhythm, get onto the pace, and looking pretty comfortable, again, knock on wood, for an opening victory in the season.
Lewis, Apex Racing Team, I think, have just had a moment with Kieran Harrison, because the Sim RC car that was leading by 19 seconds has seen the gap being cut in half, and now we have to see there is damage on that Hyundai Elantra. I'm almost 100% sure.
I don't believe in the commentators, Curse. Just going to say it. Just going to get that one out of the way immediately, as our juniors literally scanning through everything to try and find out what has gone on as well. I know that Hugo Luis will be behind the scenes.
Go down to pit lane very quickly. Ewan, what are they saying on the radio?
Kieran Harrison absolutely convinced that he has some damage in that car at the moment, and it's not surprising looking at that one actually. There is a fair amount there, but Corentin Guinez behind the scenes says that there's definitely enough gap for them to hold off. They think they're going to be able to hold off R8G even with the damage.
Do you need more drama? Well, there you go. 9.5 seconds with 17 minutes to go. That's the car that has dominated this race so far. Yes, RAG have pushed them, but not to the point where it even looks close for SimRC to break. I think we just have to see what happened to them, Lewis, and we got to figure out, was this a mistake or was this multi-class chaos? We'll get the indication here, and we'll see Jamie Fluke running down into the S's.
Ooh.
Contact with Semper Racing. Now, where does SimRC... No, Jamie. No, Jamie. You cannot do that. That is unacceptable, and that is a stonewall slam dunk, whatever word you want to use. That's a penalty right there.
I mean, he'll feel bad for it, for sure, but that... I mean, again, Connery Maddock, I know it's about rejoins. We all love Jamie Fluke, but that was unacceptable. That was absolutely awful from Jamie Fluke. We'll see it again. This first part is just awful luck. Truly awful luck. It's wrong place, wrong time. This point, though,
he doesn't even stop. He's lit up the rear tires. He doesn't have the opportunity to go and look down at the information that we have in the sim, which is a relative box showing where cars are relative to your position. He doesn't have time to look down at that. He just is thinking about going. And for that 97 car, which currently runs in 8th, I'm pretty sure a penalty here will drop him outside of the top 15.
Yeah, like I said, and if I've ever seen a slam dunk penalty, we know race control and whatnot, they tend to be harsher on things that are kind of like more substantial, or more basics, probably the right word, right? Yeah, a little bit of side-by-side contact, or even like missing your braking point, a touch, and then punting someone off the rear end. Those are some serious penalties, fair enough. But a bad rejoin? No, that's something the race control, no race control ever looks on and goes, oh, well, it'll just be a light penalty or whatever. It's always like, you're going to get done big time.
I would go to Ewan O'Leary, but he has found out that apparently there are fire alarms in his building that are going off. Yeah, that angle just continues to make it look awful. He did report to us before he had to step aside that, I'll go back to what we said in the first hour. Thankfully, it is the old damaged model. If it was the new damaged model, he used the word that I'm not allowed to use without getting taken off the airwave permanently. However, you can infer just how monumentally in trouble they would be if this was on the new damage model.
Yeah, they'd be in serious trouble. I mean, I've driven again with the new damage model. It is bad.
Penalty has already come down. That's why I love live race control, because they don't even need to review too much if there's something as obvious as that. It will be a stop and hold 10-second penalty that Jamie Fluke is obliged to serve within 3 laps of the penalty coming down. Now, that was slightly different to what we had with Team Redline. From my understanding, with a brief conversation from race control, we mentioned they had a small penalty, but that will be applied as a post-race time penalty. Jamie Fluke, I think the indication here is you're not just getting the 10 seconds, you're having to slowly come down pit lane and waltz at pit lane speed.
And they were expecting it as well, basically, because they're not like, oh no, we'll stay out for a couple of laps and argue with race control pointlessly until we get disqualified, which happened in DTM a few years ago, back at the Red Bull Ring, banter. But this, I mean, they will know 110%. There's no messing about. There's no joke on that one. It's a slam dunk penalty. There is Jamie Fluke, who we did hear as well. Like I said, apologised immediately. Apologies, not going to do anything there. It's going to be a long 10 seconds, and if you're watching Drive to Survive, it might have been about 10.5 minutes. But alas, we are underway after 10 seconds. Actually, 10 seconds of stationary, and like I said, dropping right down the order, but still going to score points. The important bit, points for every single position, drops down to 17th. Wow.
I did say outside of the top 15, I actually thought he might still be able to squeak in, but it shows you just how important it is to, what do we say in our Michelin keys to the victory? Stay out of pit lane and stay out of trouble with multi-class chaos. We have 13 minutes still left to go. While one Apex Racing team car struggles, the other one still jubilant, 26 seconds clear. To give you the update on the touring car battles as well, Lewis, it's still trending quite well for Kieran Harrison, who's only losing about 4 or 5 tenths a lap, with still about 8.5 seconds to spare in this battle.
Yeah, you can see how sorry the front end of the Elantra looks at the moment on this Sim RC machine. But Kieran Harrison's doing what he needs to do. Right now, he'll be basically looking at the gap and then running to a time, basically, of being like, right, okay, how much, if I were to zero the gap, if I were to lose all of it going to the end of the race, I'm expecting there to be 10 laps left to go. How much time to lose? 9/10 a lap. Fair enough. Only aim for that.
Well, we may just have had another twist in the tail, Lewis.
Ooh.
Unsafe rejoin for the 97. That was slam dunk. Apparently it's not over. Apparently the 176 is not out of the woods for their own potential unsafe rejoin.
We didn't see their rejoin.
We did not see that rejoin. So now we have to wait and see. So with 12 minutes to go, we want to get, of course, all of these race control decisions done during the race, but sometimes it's just not feasible. We will keep you guys updated as to the status of this one, but there's still more drama left to go with 11 minutes and 40 seconds to play.
Yeah, I hadn't even thought about it. Obviously, Kieran Harrison would have been frustrated, but there's nothing saying that he wouldn't have just slammed the throttle and rejoined over. He was over on basically on the relief road, which they use when they do club stuff around, stuff that you really wouldn't see. Anyone who wants to see that layout, go and look at Southpaw Racing, his track guide around here. It's the Super Series track guide of Road Atlanta, and it's club layout and some of the really weird corners that exist on this circuit when you do the alternate layout that no one really uses. Use that road and obviously would have just rejoined straight onto the racing line at a very awkward point, because you want to drag it over to the right hand side. Those on the racetrack don't even know that there's probably a car there, because past this point your vision's focused on a couple of corners ahead, and then as that part of the track rejoins, you're back over on the left hand side trying to get the S's right up towards turn 5. Very easy to mess that one up. And like I said, it probably would have been just completely out of nowhere if Kieran Harrison would have just popped straight back on the track.
Yes, so I think regardless, what this does mean is we're almost odds-on guaranteed for a double Honda podium, second and third with RAG. Marcel Jotunheim in the Impulse 122 is trying to run down Ollie Steinbraten, but he's got 2.7 seconds to find and only 10 minutes to do so. That, at least based on recent lap times, does seem like a gap that is not going to close sufficiently within time. Just looking up and down, though, there's really not too much in terms of battling for podium. In GTD, Lewis, it's really battling to stay inside of the top 10. We see Kova here and Team Redline, of course. But you got the likes of the Mercedes-AMG Williams Esports team that I think, on reflection, we'll say today was not the best of days, but there are plenty of positives in terms of pace and whatnot. Maybe not charging forward as dominantly as Johan Harth in the recovery, but ultimately a good, clean day and understanding and settling into this championship.
And it's not done yet. They've got the Team 75 Bernard by SimRC not that far ahead, because of course there they are in that number 75 car. Brad Van Poel behind the wheel at the moment, Josh Thompson directly behind, Matti Siepeler directly behind that, and then Daniel Pajtor, all fairly close if my live timing is to be believed. So realistically, there's still a few extra spots that can be picked up in the final 10 minutes, and I believe that the 75 is struggling a little bit on tyres. We saw them a few times having a few issues, and so there might be some opportunities for some even more recovery to get inside that top 10 to get after maybe even a decent-ish position inside that top 10. Ish, yeah. I was going to put the provision on that. Really focus on that.
Yeah, of course, don't forget, we'll have our VCO post-race show coming up at the conclusion of this. Talk to the winners and hopefully talk to a couple of the podium sitters as well and get the chance to debrief this first experience for them in the IMSA Esports sanctioned event. Remember, this is a sim racing competition for sim racers by sim racers. It is IMSA diving into the virtual world with their partners at VCO to put something forward that the sim racers would love, the audience will enjoy. And I think on reflection so far for round one, I've enjoyed myself a bunch. Oh, yeah. I think overall the drivers will say, okay, this was crazy, but it's no less crazy than any of the other racing that we do. I think overall, Lewis, with still 8 minutes to go, I got a big smile on my face.
Oh yeah, I mean, it's been banter, which is obviously what is currency in the modern world. As a championship, we've had a lot of fun out on the circuit. Part of me is almost a little disappointed we haven't seen the safety car. We've not needed it, which is a good sign. But still, part of me is like, oh, where's the safety? Do you know what I'm going to say? I'm going to say something maybe a little bit dicey here. If we haven't had a safety car here, actually, maybe Laguna Seca, fair enough. But I'm not sure we will see a safety car.
That's a bold prediction.
It is a bold prediction.
What is also something to point out right now, by the way, as we continue to watch this GTD battle just outside the top 10, as the CrowdStrike Racing TC machine, the touring car, goes off. He's not the only one that's been involved in something. The Impulse 122 has lost 4th position to the Apex Racing team car. Remember, Nicole Foggy did not put in a qualifying lap time. Foggy and Valero have worked their way forward to be in 4th position, and yes, Impulse maybe were assisted when they went off, but it is the perseverance, even without the safety car, to mix things up. And that's what the safety car is here to do, Lewis. It is not a guaranteed change in strategy, but what it means is you got to think about it, you got to be aware of it, and factor that in when you plan out this 2 hours and 40 minutes.
We'll also say that Garl Valero's only about... He's running about half a second lap faster than Steinbraten directly ahead. It is about 2 seconds behind, 6.5 minutes left to go in the race. There is theoretically enough time for him to close up and potentially grab a podium, but that's not going to be easy. But it is possible.
We're just trying to get people excited about this final 6 minutes of the race, because it has been wild, and we deserve a grandstand finish to all of you, those that have stuck around wherever you're watching around the world on VCO Esports RaceSpot TV and on the iRacing Esports Network, because this is the first of 4 rounds. We're back in a week's time, then we get a week off, and we head to the Indianapolis Motor Speedway to start our month of November, a preview of the Battle of the Bricks. Rumor has it we may even be running into the night. Ooh. We'll have to wait and see about that one. Fire out of the back of the McLaren once more. Distinctive, it is for sure. And here comes Jamie Fluke trying to work past Arnage competition with Nicholas Rubelar, so experienced across of the sim racing world. Not just losing one, but I think losing 2 there.
Gotta say, the fire breather might actually look really good at night, so I'll be all over that one. But you're absolutely right, losing out a couple of positions going into the final sector. I mean, this Matt, he's going to be determined. Not just to come back from for the team and whatnot, but to come back from this mistake, redemption for himself in the final 5 minutes to try and do something about this race. Back up the order with the number 55. That's currently running in 12th position. Daniel Pagedor behind the wheel. Said before, he does have a potential to get inside the top 10. We'll see what happens to the Arnage competition car. Getting stuck a little bit by lap traffic and making very much... Okay, let's clarify. That's the wrong call.
That is the wrong pit lane that he was thinking about. That's the support pit lane that gets used for the likes of the IMSA Michelin Pilot Challenge during the Motul Petit Le Mans weekend. It's one of those decisions. You go left or you go right. He had the blocker, of course, of Jamie Fluke being on his right-hand side, so logically you go to left, but you run out of room. That's why that final corner is so treacherous when it comes to the traffic. And we haven't, I think, talked about this analytically enough, Lewis, with 4 minutes and a half to go. But it's going to be a big factor at Laguna, I think, more than it is here. Front-wheel drive cars just generate speed in a different way, as around the outside, the fire-breathing McLaren, Yannick Lapchin trying to steal away a spot from Jamie Fluke.
Yeah, Yannick Lapchin and Jamie Fluke battling for 16th in this race. I would not have called that before we saw the green flag, but a super effort. Lapchin trying to get around the outside, like you said, in the fire breather. I agree. When we go to Laguna Seca is a tight circuit. It's tighter than here. It's almost just as much of a roller coaster. It's not quite as high on my list of favourite tracks, but it is a good one. No big straights though to deal with. On here, you can kind of pick off a few of the touring cars on that back stretch. It's not a problem. Or you can be a little bit more patient and get the shoot out. If you're behind a touring car going up the hill, going up towards the corkscrew coming out of T6, you can be in a very bad spot because it kind of the road twists up there and stuff. I think we're going to see some drama there for sure. If we get through Laguna Seca without a safety car, then we won't see a safety car all season. That's my prediction.
You say that, but Daytona, I mean...
Okay, if we get through Laguna Seca, Indianapolis and Daytona without a safety car, we won't see a safety car all season. The proper Lewis McGlade point there.
It's still not the most obvious thing that you've ever said, but it is definitely up there. Here is the RAG car. It is down to 5.5 seconds, but with 3 minutes to go, it's not going to be a fight. Sorry, this is Ole Steinbraten feeling the pressure from Guile Valero from the back of the field to a podium. Here comes the Frenchman.
Said Guile Valero might well be able to close in and grab a podium. I was expecting to come down to the final lap. Guile Valero says, no, thank you very much. I'd rather get past Steinbraten before we see the checkered flag. He'd like to see himself on the podium. He's getting to the outside of the final corner. It's going to go for the up and under, though, on the race down towards the first. Beautiful stuff, but he doesn't quite have the speed. He's been squeezed over by Steinbraten.
Fastest lap in class, I think, for Guile Valero last time by. Not just using the draft, but clearly using the Michelin tires as well. With 2.5 minutes left to go. He'll get to the inside through turn 3. Still a little bit too far behind, but close enough to stick door to door and to squeeze Steinbraten all the way on the run down in the entry to the yeses. And Guile Valero takes the Apex Racing team from the back of the field to the podium.
Yeah, that's a proper golf clap right there. That was a big move. Absolutely love that one. Having a couple of connection problems still, but that did not affect in that battle. That was a beautiful start, a beautiful move from Guile Valero, using all of his experience and, like you say, the Michelin tires as well as Dura Esports have had an off.
Yeah, it's not been easy for them. By the way, already across the line, Kevin Ellis Jr. has started yet another lap. We have 2 more laps to go. Track continues to get dark. Might help the cars grip up a little bit more in these closing stages, even as the Michelin tires have worn on. But what a dominant drive so far for the number 98. Let's head back down to pit lane for the very final time today to chat with our hard-working team. Ewan O'Leary reporting on behalf as well with Lorenzo Bonder. And Ewan, there was nothing in the voice chat for RAG as Valero got it done.
Yeah, absolutely nothing. I've got to say, I felt a feeling of resignation almost when I was in there listening to them. Really, they just realised that Guile Valero is going way too fast for us to defend from him right now. And they realised pretty quickly that they were not going to hold on to that podium for the final 3 minutes of that battle. Unfortunately, the Apex are going to be really ones to watch out for in touring car in previous races when they start from maybe a bit further up the order, as I'm sure they'll be thinking themselves in the 199.
And of course, no George Simmons behind the wheel of the 199. He's working with Veloce as part of the McLaren Formula 1 Esports team. Of course, George, a employee at the McLaren Formula 1 team, but now translating that into a role with esports as well. Around through the final corner, it is white flag in hand. It is one more lap for the Apex Racing team to run to sew up another weekend and another win here at the Michelin Raceway Road Atlanta.
Been a brilliant drive so far from the 98. Just got to deal with another 1 minute and basically 16 seconds, although let's be real, from this point on it's only probably about a minute to deal with before you see that checkered flag. And they've nailed the last 159 of them. It's just that one final one. Sometimes it can catch you out, but let's be honest, the experience they've got within the Apex Racing team, it shouldn't do so. Same again to Kieran Harrison's feeling a lot of pressure in that Sim RC car on that final lap of the race. He's got RHG bearing down on him, but it shouldn't be by enough. I will say the other RHG car is still in contention for third, so maybe we'll see them on the podium. Okay.
It is not, it's not totally done and dusted. Then there still are fights to watch. Monaco and Kova in their two Ferraris are fighting for 7th as they're just about to start their final lap of the race. But my word, what a race to kick off this virtual revolution. IMSA has joined the esports rank, and partnering with VCO has put on a sim racing tournament for sim racers by sim racers. You can tell what it means to Kevin Ellis Jr. It is back-to-back wins at the Michelin Raceway Road Atlanta. It's 2 wins on Sunday for Kevin Ellis Jr. They take round 1 of the 2022 IMSA Esports Michelin Global Championship, powered by VCO. A dominant display of pace, consistency, and pure brilliance. And while we wait for the touring car leader to come to the line, it's fair to say Sim RC had to fight for this one, and then had some adversity at the very end, but beaten and battered, it does not matter. Kieran Harrison and Corentin Guinez have proved why they are 2 of the touring car finest here on iRacing.
Probably the only broken car that I've seen ever cross a line as a race winner as well. So really adding to the ranks in the touring car. I mean, what a way to start the touring car. I mean, coming over the line to win with a totally battered car. Absolutely love it.
Teammates have moved forces and now have bolstered the ranks of Sim RC. And it's another benchmark victory for the Bumblebees as Sim RC roars across the line and Harrison nurses the damage all the way home. Double podium for the Hyundai at the end of the day. It was a very interesting battle, Honda versus Hyundai, all the way to the very end. We watch as we see Gianni Vecchio and Josh Thompson lead Kova, Williams CrowdStrike across the line. I mean, Lewis, an utterly dramatic opening round. And let's not forget, this is a short championship. Not just 4 rounds, but in 6 weeks' time, we'll know the first champions in this IMSA Esports Michelin Global Championship.
Short championship, it really, really is. It's a relentless championship, and that's why you got to make these ones stick. And boom, some big donuts already being dished out from the Apex Racing team. They're showing who's boss and slamming their teammate who did not have a joyful end to the race. Let's add that one to the mix. And whilst things were good for one Apex car, not so for the other, we'll see if they can remain the dominant force for the next few weeks.
It shows the dual sides of motorsport and indeed of all sports. The joy of victory, the agony of defeat. For Jamie Fluke, yes, it's fair to say it was self-inflicted, the penalty that he got, but that 97 showed its speed, and Johan Harth, one of your contenders for the Michelin Driver of the Day. The race is in the book, so don't forget to let us know who you think should be nominated, as we will award one driver and one driver alone the title of Michelin Driver of the Day. My word, 122 laps later, somehow Lewis and myself, we still have our voices after this weekend, and it is a dominant display as the Kevin Ellis Jr. and Alejandro Sanchez combination roars to victory in a caution-free race, 29 seconds clear of those behind. It feels familiar with Mercedes-AMG Urano in second, the best of the Mercedes, while Williams Esports Razor, the bright green that you cannot miss, drags their car 7 places forward to sit on the final step of the podium. It's the Urano Esports Data Group car that finishes in 4th with 2 Urano cars inside the top 4. It doesn't get much better than that, while Alejandro Rui Sanchez is able to bring the Porsche for MSI Esports home across the line less than a second in front of Phil Denez with MSI Esports plus 10 at the end of this one. Difficult day for BS Turner. They're 6-2 with Monaco Esports and Aaron Vasquez gaining 7 spots to get up to 7th at the end of the day, with Kova and Tumas Tatala, the best of their cars. The Ferrari across the line in 8th. Bram Van Putten for Team 75 Sim RC In 9th with Josh Thompson, the only of the finishing redline machines. Matti Siepola for Kova in their BMW in front of the Mercedes-AMG Williams Esports 55, and Sam Michaels in the CrowdStrike Racing with SRC Movano number 4. Those the cars left on the lead lap, and after 2 hours and 40 minutes, the relentlessness of the pace saw so many drop behind. Pure Sims in their Lamborghini 14th with Monaco Esports and Jaden Laydick running up in the top 5 for times, but a couple of issues dropping them down the field. Jamie Fluke, the penalty season, finishing 16th in front of the Altus McLaren, in front of the BMW BS competition car that tangled with the other official BMW entry, the BMW Team Redline number 71, with Arnage Competition and Door Esports in their McLaren and Lamborghini, rounding out the top 20. Christophe Herbigno as the 99 hardpoint car carries over to the virtual world in collaboration with Delta Sport, finishes 21st, with Nathan Moore in the race clutch Ferrari in front of Carlos Fenelosa for Altus in their 43. 3 laps down, Maniti Racing, the true spirit of endurance racing, nursing that car all the way to the very end. And then some of our retirees, Mario Salafranca, tried to do what he can, but had a big issue that we saw, almost running into the CrowdStrike Mercedes. 25th for them. Brabham on their return to IMSA competition, 26th in front of the Michael Neumeyer-driven Bila Racing Euronics car with Carbon SimSports McLaren, besting the Triton SimSport McLaren in the battle of the poles, but not a good day for either of them. Maximilian Benecke, the very first of our retirees after that tussle through turn 1. Then we go over to the touring cars, and it was the Bumblebee of Sim-RC that was 4 seconds clear at the end of the day, but Florian Labigra showing the Honda's got some pace, and RAG is here to win. Gaio Valero steals the final step on the podium away from Ollie Steinbraten in the very dying stages of this race, but RAG, another team with 2 cars inside the top 4, finish in front of Chris Shorter and Marcel Jochenheim in the Impulse 122. Watch out for them. A couple of issues, but clear potential in their Hyundai. Koen Klopman in 6th ran well throughout the course of the day with Carl Winkler and Pascal Six's first run in TCR, seeing them come across the line in 7th in front of Yaroslav Sabula for Semper Racing. Brandon Hawkin was expected to be one to watch, but CrowdStrike Racing struggling today with the chaos of the race in 9th with the official Honda Racing performance entry, completing the top 10 and 3 laps down, while our final 4 cars see Gergo Baldi, bit of a bowling ball, a pin in the ball there with Gergo Baldi 11th, Pearsons and 2 Full Send Racing cars round out the results. Lewis McLeod was a little bit disappointed that I read the results. It took so long, but Lewis, so many stories to reflect on as we complete these 122 laps.
I thought you were commentating on the race again. So much has happened throughout that race. It really does show exactly what's been happening. But the 98, they are the big talk of the town right now after such a good, to be honest, such a good day, right? when you take a couple of wins over a day in high-level competition. Yeah, you're gonna be feeling good. You're gonna be feeling very happy going into the week to come. But for Alejandro Sanchez, for Kevin Ellis Jr., a victory here and a dominant victory as well.
I will point out these are unofficial race results.
Correct.
We know of at least one penalty that is going to be applied post-race, and there are still infringements that drivers may have done before the end of this race, including doing a full cool-down lap, which you are required to do. Head over to VCO Esports. Don't forget, on all your social medias to vote for the Michelin Driver of the Day. It's Alejandro Sanchez versus Martin van Lozenoord versus Johan Hart. You tell us who impressed you the most. Let's go ahead and do some interviews now. And I tell you what, Lewis, I'm going to leave you with the dominant duo of Alejandro Sanchez and Kevin Ellis Jr.
Yeah, we'll drag him in and have a quick chat. We'll start with Kevin Ellis Jr. because, of course, you finished the race in that car. You got handed the car over in a pretty decent spot. Let's go with that. Pretty stressful out there. Did it take you a little while to get into the rhythm in such a crazy style of race?
Yeah, Alejandro done a mega job as he did a week ago or whenever it was when we done Petit Le Mans. Really made my job easy. But yeah, it took a little bit to get into the rhythm there. The track had a lot of grip, but only on the front end. The rear end at high speed was just giving me a little bit of issues, and then the traffic was just absolutely brutal. Like those TCRs, they're slow and separate in like completely different areas to where you'd normally kind of, I don't know, like it's hard to balance it. Like they're really slow in some of the corners, and you need to give up like a second in one corner. So it tested my patience this evening, that's for sure. But just grateful that we had that gap to work with, and that really took the pressure off.
2 hours and 40 minutes is, the distance of the race for all of the races that we're doing. Is this kind of like an exciting distance? Because normally when we do these endurance racing, they're like 2 hours or they're 4 hours, and they're kind of like, it's a nice round number to work with. 2 hours and 40 is a little bit awkward, and that's the entire point of it. Do you like that?
It definitely made things a little bit different in terms of how we looked at judging the stints, because obviously you've got your 2 1-hour stints, then you've got that sort of like a oddball one somewhere in the middle, so you can either take that in the middle or take it at the end, kind of depending on how the race is looking. So yeah, I mean, Mark decided to put us on that strategy to use that short stint in the middle, just in case of a safety car. But thankfully, there was no safety cars today. We were able to avoid that, which was a massive relief for us. Obviously, having a lead like that, don't ever want to see one of them come out. But yeah, I think it's a good distance of race. Obviously, as I say, it leaves a sort of oddball stint in there, which you can kind of move around depending on how the race is panning out. But yeah, overall, I'd say I'm not a fan.
Wow, well, head over to your teammate Super Drive from Kevin Ellis Jr. But the man who did a lot of the work early on in the race, Alejandro Sanchez, joins us here in the commentary booth also. I mean, what a drive at the start of the race. You absolutely destroyed the field in the opening 5-10 minutes, pulling out, I think it was 5 seconds in 13 minutes. What an incredible drive. What's that kind of do to your mentality through a race like that?
I don't know what happened, to be fair, in the first 13 minutes. I think they just started crashing into each other and I got away with it. And then in the first part of the traffic, I'd say I got luckier than the guys chasing. So it was just 10 seconds gaps, after, I don't know, 20 minutes or something like that. So it was just a matter of managing the risk and lapping TCRs and stuff. But yeah, quite chill race. Like, we didn't really struggle for anything. The setup was really, really good from last week, obviously. Lots of hours have been put into it, and the team did a giga job with the strategy as well. We had Mark on the strategy, giving us the pointers and calling out what to do at each time. So it was just focusing on the driving and not getting ourselves killed by a TCR or not killing a TCR for that matter.
Now, with a lot of motorsport related, whether it's manufacturers or in this case, of course, series backing sim racing series, what's it kind of like to race in a championship? With IMSA as the name, as the brand, being kind of racing under that with all this official sponsorship and stuff. Does that add the pressure? Do you kind of enjoy racing in such a high-profile series?
Yeah, it's the only kind of series I enjoy racing nowadays. High profile, high risk, high reward, and yeah, that's why we are professionals, because we like doing this kind of races. And yeah, I actually quite enjoy the format, 2 hour 40-minute format. It opens up strategies quite a bit, and I'm a big fan as well of multi-class. I've been racing in other championships where there is multi-class and touring cars are involved plenty of times. So I had quite a bit of experience in that regard. I know where to take risks and where to keep it safe. So it played a big part in our win today, I'd say.
Well, to Kevin Ellis Jr., to Alejandro Sanchez, enjoy your evenings. I'm sure it's going to be a good one after a very long day indeed. What a drive from the pair of you. Super stuff.
Yeah, quite a long day first, so now it's time to enjoy the rest of it.
Well, we'll head back to Arjuna. Like you say, great to catch up with our drivers, but wow, what a drive they had. That absolutely superb.
It was fantastic, and I think you're right. It was the opening salvo, right? The 5-second gap that set the tone and set the rhythm for the race. But now, while Apex cruised to the line, it wasn't as easy back in the touring car class, especially with the damage that SimRC and that 176 Hyundai Elantra had to deal with. Let's chat first with Kieran Harrison, who brought it across the line. And Kieran, what was going through your head when you got the damage and when you saw just how impacted the car was?
Yeah, I mean, I was actually relieved when I knew the extent of the damage. I think with the new damage model would have been dead, but I'd have been so disappointed to lose it like that. I think we had it totally under control at that point. And then it was then I had to go back to like pushing as hard as I possibly could to try and hold the gap. I wasn't sure, because we still had 15 laps or so left. I wasn't sure whether I'd be able to hold on, but yeah, mega relieved to be able to still win the race. Such an incident near the end.
In your opinion, coming into this one, how much were you looking at the conversation about BOP? Because there was a lot of chatter about the Hondas, you know, maybe not having the pace, but I think it was fair to say today R8G clearly showed up with a rocket ship.
Yeah, I mean, we kind of thought the Honda was okay anyway. I mean, Ross was racing us week in, week out fast in the Honda as well, so we knew that in the right hands it can be quick. I was a little bit worried near the start of the race with the pace of R8G because I just couldn't get away. I mean, he couldn't get away from me either. It was just to and fro with the traffic. But yeah, they really seemed to have good pace. I wasn't sure how it would work out once we eventually got some clean air. But yeah, we just seemed to have better longevity through the stints, I guess. So towards the end, that's when we seemed to pull the gaps.
Let's head over to Corrington then. From your perspective, new championship Corrington, but a familiar teammate and somewhat of a familiar car as well. How do you judge yourself heading out of this first round of 4?
Not too bad, I think. Like I had to go from the Civic to this car today, so it wasn't very easy. But yeah, I think Kieran has done such a strong job at the start of the race. So yeah, then I had the gap to just manage the race. The setup was perfect, the strat was perfect. So yeah, he made just the race easier. Sure.
As you look forward to the rest of the season then, a week away from heading over to the WeatherTech Raceway Laguna Seca, then a trip to Indianapolis and Daytona in November. What are you most worried about now that you've experienced this GTD and touring car multi-class chaos?
Yeah, I think traffic, it's mainly the traffic for sure. The pace looks fine, so I'm not worried about the pace, but yeah, traffic will be the main key. Like during the one-on-one interview, I said that traffic was the key. And we see that today, so yeah, we're gonna just have to stay clean in the traffic, not take too many risks, and we should be fine then, I guess.
SimRC showing the spirit of endurance racing damage, but it didn't hinder them from getting the victory here in round 1 of the 2022 IMSA Esports Michelin Global Championship powered by VCO. And unfortunately, we're not joined by any more drivers, so that's going to conclude the interview portion of our VCO post-race show. But Lewis, we can start to look forward to 7 days from today, slightly earlier because there's this thing called the US Grand Prix that's also next Sunday. But we go racing. From the best coast of the USA, we head to the tight and twisty Laguna Seca.
Yeah, thankfully I don't have to race straight back to wherever I'm staying for that one, so that's okay. I can actually sit down and prepare, get myself ready for what is going to be an absolutely crazy race. Road Atlanta is a brilliant track, but Laguna Seca delivers on drama. It's absolutely ridiculous. Sure, the corkscrew is one of the most famous corners in all of the world, but the tight, twisty nature, the kind of the lack of runoff, and how easy it is to open the steering when you're racing with someone. It's going to be a dicey affair out there, I'm sure.
And Roman Grosjean has showed us that you can make passes at the corkscrew if you really are willing to make it happen. Here's a look at up above at the dry lake bed that has been converted into what is now a staple of video game folklore. October 23rd. It won't be at 2 p.m. Eastern. I think we move it up 2 hours, so it is at noon Eastern, but again, follow on social media, vote for Michelin Driver of the Day. Lewis, before we say goodbye, let's quickly talk about that. Van Lozenoord versus the Apex duo of Sanchez and Harth. Is there any question in your mind who should win the Driver of the Day for round number 1?
For me, it's Harth. For me, it is Harth. It's the recovery drive that Harth had. This is not to try and skim it, because of course Alejandro Sanchez, I mean, that opening stint was absolutely incredible. Kevin Hayes Jr. also doing an incredible job to jump in with that. But normally when we think of the driver, sometimes you want to look a little bit more left field. Who's actually had a hard task in the race? Johan Harth was dealt a pretty tricky deck and dealt with it brilliantly and got after it and really impressed us.
Well, unfortunately, all good things must come to an end, and that includes this first round of the Virtual Revolution. The 2022 IMSA Esports Michelin Global Championship is here. And for 2 hours and 40 minutes, we tangoed at Brazelton, Georgia, at the home of the Motul Petit Le Mans. If you had asked Dr. Don Panos what he thought he'd bring to the Michelin Raceway Road Atlanta all those years ago, little did he know that IMSA would kick off its virtual era here at this very track. It is sim racing for sim racers by sim racers. It is the IMSA Esports Michelin Global Championship presented by VCO. On behalf of the entire team at VCO, on the entire team at iRacing, for Hugo Luis, Lorenzo Bonder, Ewan O'Leary, and Lewis McLeod, alongside myself, Arjuna Kankipati, thank you so much for joining us for the first of 4 rounds. We'll see you in 7 days' time from the WeatherTech Raceway Laguna Seca. But once again, it's the Apex Racing team and SimRC on top here to open up the 2022 IMSA Esports Michelin Global Championship presented by VCO.